All right, episode 765 with my friend Matt Blackburn from Mitolife Radio is brought to you by Promo Life's ozone generators, Lifeblood's methylene blue, Surthrival's colostrum, and the molecular hydrogen aquacure device that makes Brown's gas, which is right there. All right, enjoy the show. All right, welcome, my friends, to episode 765 of Extreme Health Radio. Thank you for joining me today. This is a really fun show. I'm really excited about this one because Matt's been my friend for almost probably 10 years now. And I really love the work that he does at Mitolife and his supplement brand and everything he's doing. And just him as a person, his integrity is just great. And I always have a fun time geeking out with him on different subjects. He's always into different things that I'm into, and we kind of share and go back and forth about all the cool things and health that we're into. We talk about a lot of cool things in today's show. We kind of geeked out on vitamin C and vitamin E and how they work synergistically together to provide the body with antioxidants and to donate electrons across the cell membrane and to increase the cell membrane voltage and all kinds of cool stuff like that. We talked about a recent study on ALS and niacinamide. We talked about gardening, biohacking, all kinds of cool stuff. And then, of course, we talked about water near the end of the show. This was a really fun one. I hope you enjoy it. Enjoy the show. I remember Morley talking about, and I don't know where he got this, but how the amount of stress that we're exposed to on a daily basis, in today's culture is like 1,000 times more than what was, 200 years ago. And whether or not you can quantify that or not, it feels that way,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And then you just add on social media. And that's been such a psychological study for me the last, 6 months, but let's say last 2 years, especially because anyone that changes their mind on social media gets crucified at the stake. And it's like, it's really interesting to see that aspect. I think that's a testament to how stressed people are. And it's so contradictory because all of those people are every post educating about how to reduce stress, yet there's all this like infighting and like crucifying and like attacking. Like, obviously you guys that are eating the most sugar are the most stressed because you're obviously attacking people, nonstop. So yeah, it's been really interesting. I think I've definitely matured a lot the last 2 years. I think that's one of the benefits of social media. It's like a accelerator if you use it that way of knowledge and of maturity. And it's like, I don't have the energy anymore to like tear people down. It's not a good use of my time or energy.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to put memes out there that trigger people and stuff like that. That's kind of fun. But you said something on one of your social media posts a while back, I think it was Instagram, where you're like, I want to make more friends this year instead of enemies. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of what you were talking about?
Yeah, pretty much. And I've made amends with a few people, like Luke Story is one of them. And, I kind of got feeling a couple of years ago, he was like taking my material, not giving me credit. But it's like now I look at that as a compliment to anyone that does that. I mean, I think I could count on two hands how many businesses I've inspired to start Shilajit and magnesium companies, So it's like, it's great. It's getting the word out there, even if it's not, supporting Mitolife, it's supporting the message, and other people are carrying it on, whether they like me or not. So,
yeah, I know. It's good. It's like the message gets out. And as long as I think people follow you and me for, information, and as long as they like the information that we're putting out, they'll turn into customers and, all of that,
Yeah. It's been fun to like, I'd say 80-90% of the money that I make from Mitolife all back into the business. Uh-huh. And it's exciting because we finally, like, I don't know if you remember, for the last 2 years, we were like always out of stock of like half the products or like 3/4. Yeah. And it'd be like 2 to 3 months wait, like, Matt, when's Elk Antler going to be back? Or when's vitamin K2 going to be back? And now we have like an abundance of all the products. So it's kind of cool that I'm considering finally getting into the stores, like wholesale.
Oh, wow.
Little like, I don't know, little coffee shops or, small health food stores. I don't really care to get into like Whole Foods or Erewhon or Sprouts or any big box stores. Not really interested in that, but
Yeah.
just kind of spreading the message, because I think Mitolife has a pretty unique message from other supplement companies. So
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. That's really cool. So we're going to talk a little bit about water, but I want to know more about like what your plans are with other products on Mitolife and what your vision is. Cause yeah, I'm curious about where you want to take it.
yeah, I mean, coming out with new products is really fun. The goal is not, to encourage people to buy every product. I mean, I do that when I find a brand that I like. I'm like, I want to try at least one of every product. And
Totally.
Of course, that's great if people do, if they do that. But the goal is just to provide more tools for people for whatever they're dealing with, whether it's their family or their friends, any, health condition. And the goal is not to, cure or treat health conditions, but improving quality of life, quote unquote. And products that are basically in line with the CLF protocol, calcification, lipofuscin, fibrosis. And it's incredible. That's like a never ending rabbit hole, because you start researching each one and you'll find all these substances and supplements that you wouldn't imagine that help with the different conditions. And I definitely want to come out with some for lipofuscin. I think back on previous shows I did with you, you talked about what was it called? The pink goo or something. Do you remember that?
Oh,
the topical.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. I heard about that from one of our previous guests. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember. Richard Massey, right?
Yeah. Dr. Massey. Yeah. I don't know what ended up becoming of that or what was even in it, but it was something to the effect of being able to get rid of lipofuscin topically, right? Was that what it was?
Yeah, I researched it for several hours and there was only like a couple articles on it, and I couldn't find like any published literature on it. It sounded cool, but I couldn't find the active ingredients or how it worked. It was just like, this reduces lipofuscin. It's like, okay, what's the mechanism?
Yeah. How does it work? Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'd order some. I couldn't even find any to order. I kind of scoured the internet. But there's some interesting, like DMAE is one supplement that's not well known. And I cycled that a few years ago when I was, trying to go heavy on detoxing lipofuscin, like a ton of vitamin E every day. And I was taking the DMAE. And there's a couple pharmaceuticals that have been talked about, but I hope more comes out on how I'm sure it will. It's funny how like metformin has been trending for anti-aging, but it's like, what about for lipofuscin? Like, what do we do for that?
Yeah, it seems like vitamin E is the number one thing for that. It's so crazy, because speaking of like, dealing with conditions and stuff, I was just reading a research article. I'm going to share it on Instagram later today about ALS, and they were talking about niacinamide. And niacinamide combined with, oh gosh, what was the other? It was a plant compound. It had one of the long names, but it was something like the extract of blueberries, but it was a scientific name, but it was niacinamide combined with that dramatically slowed the progression of ALS. So what's crazy is about like supplements and stuff, it's like you just can't like how do you market that, or how do you tell people about that if you sell it, right?
Right. I think you have to share testimonials, and that's kind of how we do it with Mitolife. It's like the testimonials shocked me. It's like, I had this condition for years and it went away, whatever it is, scarring or, birth scarring or whatever it is, or surgical scarring. And then I took systemic enzymes and almost overnight there was a reduction. I've gotten that multiple
So you're
times.
allowed to post those?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As long as it's not coming from the mouth of the company, you could pretty much use testimonials as a shield.
Oh, wow.
I was surprised the last couple of years with COVID, like how many companies I go to their website still and I see a tab on the top that says that, and you click it and it has a whole article written up about how their product helps with it. I'm like, how did they not get shut down for that?
Dude, I know, it's only a matter of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if like
Yeah.
Ormus would help with, with that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild what you can and can't say. I try to avoid all of that. And we're not, we're just affiliates of Mitolife. So we don't sell it, but I also try to steer clear of that, at all costs. Cause I don't know what, it's like, it seems like they keep changing definitions and they change the definition of what the flu was. I mean, God only knows what they're going to do retroactively, It's like,
right. Right. Yeah, but to answer your question, I can't give away too much on what we're working on, but like 3 supplements. One is zinc based, another one's collagen based. So
nice.
unique source of collagen that is not well known. And then I could say marine source,
Nice.
wild marine source. And then the zinc is a form that's not, I don't see it talked about often. And then also a nootropic that is algae based, so microalgae based. It's basically going to be a 3-ingredient nootropic. So with Mitolife, I try to keep the ingredients under 5, because a lot of companies I look at. I think you've actually interviewed Dr. William Wong, and he just posted a clip of a little speech he gave against multivitamins. And I like
Okay.
his view on supplements, because he was basically saying we've been programmed with the 1-a-day mentality that, just take one multi a day and you can get all your nutrients. But the problem with multivitamins and multiminerals, but more so with multivitamins, you can't reach the threshold doses that you need to get a beneficial effect in such small amounts, because you can only fit so much into one pill.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. Like I've been posting. Yeah. I've been posting about vitamin C and some of the, information in terms of requirements if someone's got like an acute infection. And I was reading that book by Thomas Levy, where he was talking about like AIDS patients. They may have like a 300,000 milligram per day requirement for vitamin C, which is like absolutely insane if you think about how could you ever get that without IV push or whatever, like that's an incredible amount.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And with the whole food vitamin C, quote unquote, which is whole food vitamin C is just simply ascorbic acid with some other factors with it, bioflavonoids and polyphenols and, rutin stuff. That's essentially what it is. You're still taking ascorbic acid. It's just you're getting other stuff with it. But the amount of whole food C you'd have to take to get the dose that you would get in, let's say, just a straight ascorbic acid supplement it's like double what you're getting half as much if you take the whole food C versus the and I provide both, because some people prefer the whole food vitamin C and some people like the ascorbic acid. I personally feel the ascorbic acid so much more. The stress resilience effects, I'm still taking it throughout the day, especially when I'm out on the road and driving a lot, just exposed to a lot of different EMFs. I'm not grounded. I'm driving in this metal box for hours all day.
Yeah.
Vitamin C is one of my favorite things to throw in my bag. I usually take that, a B complex, and then a fiber source. And lately it's been like psyllium husk. Just a small amount of fiber throughout the day seems to really help me out.
Yeah, I like your the whole food C as like the sort of foundation, and so I'll take your whole food C, but then I'll also take the ascorbic acid together on top of that, to sort of fill in the gaps. Because Dr. Levy was saying in his book that like the minimum sort of requirements that he talks about, and this was not even like Klenner size doses, was like 10 to 15 grams. So 10 to 15, capsules if they're 1,000 each, and so like that's sort of minimum for bowel tolerance. And so I can go super high on yours. And as long as I do the whole food C, I don't know. I think there's a synergy there. They work together,
Yeah, I had a fun experience, if you want to define it that way, where I had a corneal abrasion. I think it was middle last year, roughly, like,
oh yeah,
third
yeah, I
quarter.
remember. Yeah.
So I was, so I have a hot tub in the backyard, wood burning hot tub, and I was trying to limb a branch that was covering, the view of the night sky, which is the benefit of having an outdoor hot tub. So I was out there with my limmer, and I wasn't wearing safety glasses, and basically wood shavings rained down right on my face, and microscopic shavings, going very fast, scratched my cornea. And it was probably the most uncomfortable feeling. I've torn the ligament in my knee in high school, and that was less painful than this because it was a constant stinging for, I think it was 3 or 4 days. So the next day I went to the optometrist, and, they put some, numbing drops in my eye. And that was the first time I got a break from the constant 24-hour pain.
Yeah.
And then he looked at it under put my face in the thing. And he said, "You got LASIK, didn't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I could see the flap."
Oh, wow.
He's like, "Your eyes scuffed up pretty good too." He's like, that's pretty bad, but it'll heal over a few days. And then he gave me some drops to use. And I started to take I think there were steroid drops. I can't remember the compound. And they didn't seem to help at all. And they seemed to intensify the pain. But this is when I was just starting to question the whole food C thing. And so I was actually listening to Thomas Levy lectures because I was just couch bound for days. And I'm like, well, I might as well shut my eyes and learn. And I started taking ascorbic acid, and I actually felt a relief that I didn't get from the steroid drops. It was really palpable. And I think I was playing with liposomal capsules, and then I took regular ascorbic acid. Didn't notice a difference between the two, maybe even more with the ascorbic acid powder. And I think that really sped the healing because our eyes actually use vitamin C and vitamin E to basically keep glutathione in a reduced state. Well, that's mainly vitamin E's job. But, the eyes are part of the body that's the most prone to oxidative stress. So that's why we have a concentration of C and E there, especially in the retina, to protect against blue light. And I've been a little less afraid of artificial light since learning about vitamin C and vitamin E and the role in shielding us from oxidative stress, because that's really the damage that's caused by artificial light. It's a deficiency in antioxidants.
Yeah, and it's crazy how like vitamin E and vitamin C work together. They like for the voltage on the cell membrane. When electrons are lost on the cell membrane, vitamin C helps to support vitamin E with a donation of electrons to keep that cell membrane voltage strong. It's like the more you study how they work together, it's so cool, like it's amazing.
Yeah. So tocopherol, alpha tocopherol will donate an electron, and then it will turn to, I can never forget the word, tocopheroxyl radical. So it'll turn into a radical. And then vitamin C will jump in and regenerate it.
Hey, have you guys tried Sir Thribal's colostrum yet? If you haven't, you totally should. I love this stuff. What I love about it, it has lactoferrin in it, which is a really powerful iron chelator. It also has retinoic acid, which is real vitamin A, which helps load copper into ceruloplasmin. It helps to seal your gut lining, improving digestion. It contains all essential fats, sugars, and amino acids. It's non-GMO, organic, grass-fed, and it also has transfer factor and immunoglobulins in it, so it modulates your immune system. Great for gut health. There's 4 flavors: the original, vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate. I like the original myself. I add it to my smoothies, coffee, ice cream, pancakes, shakes. The kids love it. It's amazing stuff. Check it out on biochargeme.com.
Back to alpha tocopherol. And it's really interesting, the whole tocotrienol thing with like Barry Tan, because he's done such a good job at going on all the biohacking podcasts. And it seems like a lot of people are convinced that, annatto sourced vitamin E is like the best. And then And then going back, a lot of the repeat people say the wheat germ oil extracted vitamin E was the only stuff that worked. But then you get all these testimonials of, your mixed-tocopherol vitamin E. It's been on the market for, quite a while, and it works. So does it not work as good as it did back in the, 70s, maybe? But it still works. So
yeah, I mean, in terms of like super powerful antioxidants, like vitamin E and vitamin C together, I know they're a big part of your stack with blue light and like smart meters and EMF and stuff like that. But you're right. The more of that you can take, like if you're going to get on a flight or if you're going to go like a long drive, like you said, or whatever the case may be, like if you're going to be dealing, like, let's say you have to go like, hash something out with a friend and there's going to be an argument, it's like, that would be a good time to sort of, stack up on those two things because of the amount of electrons that they donate to you,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that ascorbic acid uses the same transporter as glucose. It's like the GLUT1. And so there's this interesting synergy with ketosis and intermittent fasting and vitamin C. So I've been playing with that too. Like if I'm going several hours in between meals, which I think is healthy, instead of the last 3 years I've been snacking, which made me insatiably hungry. And I don't think did my blood sugar any favors. So now in between meals, I'm taking B complex and vitamin C, and I just feel so grounded. And it's supporting my adrenals, it's supporting my brain, my eyes. I think the adrenals get a lot of attention with vitamin C, but people forget how important it is for catecholamine production. And you can have basically excess dopamine, and vitamin C will reduce that. So it's involved in like noradrenaline production, and it basically creates this balance of neurotransmitters. Of course, you still have the GABA glutamate balance, which you have to deal with other things, but yeah, it's fascinating when you start to go, especially when you look at the research, like, just that book I was reading recently with Thomas Levy, like you look at the research, and thanks for sharing my video book review, by the way. Great. But what I was saying was like, I get this understanding, like if vitamin C or ascorbic acid causes ceruloplasmin to fold incorrectly, which leaks copper. I mean, does it I have so many questions about that, because if it does, then, how are people still living if copper is so important? And copper is really important, but at the same time, like, are there other expressions or proteins that it can get into instead of ceruloplasmin? Is that the only one? Or, like I said on the video, how do you account for, like, Thomas Levy has 1,200 references in the book. And then, I've talked to Dr. Huntinghacky, who was reversing cancers with IV vitamin C therapy. Dr. Kleiner's work in the 40s, bringing kids back from polio. Like, okay, like I'm okay with lowering my copper levels if I can come out of a coma, you know what I mean? Like, or reverse my cancer. It's like, let's have some perspective, I like that point. Yeah. And I think looking at all these things as tools, I think people forget that. They just see, they'll call these things fads or, whatever it is, whether it's diets or supplements. But if someone, goes carnivore and it helps their issues, maybe it doesn't work long-term, but it helps their issues. So it worked for them in that moment. Vitamin C, same thing. It's like the proof is in the pudding. The long-term discussion is something entirely different. I don't think it matters as much. It's like, if you get results and your condition is alleviated and you get long-lasting results, then it worked for you.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's kind of hyper-focusing that's happening in the health community right now, where they're worried about every little detail. And maybe that's a problem that we've created with our podcast, because we dive in so deep into things. But I think it's kind of it's just as important to zoom out and see the huge picture as well as the little picture, the deep, and maybe the big picture is more important, right, than the super deep. I think they're both important, though. That's just another trap. One's not more important than the other, but.
Yeah, I know, because a lot of people were on me too about like, I thought you were only on whole food vitamin C. And it's funny because like, you're the same way, but for me, I still promote whole food vitamin C. I think whole food vitamin C is like, that's what's found in nature, right? So maybe we only need the ascorbic acid because like we're sitting in front of computers right now, like this oxidative stress. Whole food vitamin C, I think is I mean, for me personally, my belief is that it's necessary and should be a part of people's diets. And also, you can also do ascorbic acid. And during the whole time that I was following Morley's work, and I still think he's a genius. He's amazing. But, I remember one time, like a couple days after a podcast with him, I got sick. I was coming down with something. This was pre-COVID. I was just like feeling terrible. So I went down to, I think it's called Spark Health down in San Diego. Is that what it's called? I think so, something like that. And that's where I usually go to get IV vitamin C infusions. And dude, every time I've gotten sick, every time, that reverses it like within a matter of hours, like 3-4 hours afterwards, I'm like noticeably better. And I'm still taking whole food vitamin C, and I'm just letting people know there's all kinds of vitamin C. Like let's try them all,
Yeah. If and it works, and it's like you can't be angry about that. It's like, it's this controlling kind of mindset that we want people to do it our way. And it's like, there's no one way. It's like, I mean, diving into genetics, I had Joe Cohen on my show, self-decode guy. And then I had my friend, Dr. Tyler Pansner on, and this whole genetic component. I mean, a lot of people don't believe DNA exists. I guess those are, kind of the same people that believe viruses don't exist. And I don't focus on that because I think it's not important. It's like, again, losing the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
But my experience with genetics has been it matters. And the reports are exactly lockstep with the supplements that I take. Like it's like increased vitamin A requirements. Yep. I feel incredible the more cod liver oil I take. Maybe someone else, they could get, quote, vitamin A toxicity, but also maybe that's just a vitamin E deficiency or K2 or.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. We just had on Sylvie Beljanski, and she talks about, or she's basically carrying on the work of her father, Dr. Mirko Beljanski, who was a French biochemist. I think he died in like 98, 97, somewhere around there. But his work was basically on, going back to what you're saying about DNA. Basically, what he was able to discover is that the hydrogen bonds that hold the DNA double helix together, when they become broken, that causes cells to replicate, and it causes them not just to replicate, but replicate faster and faster and faster. And so he's been able to determine, like, which things will break that hydrogen bond the most, like which toxins will do that. And he's been able to find like 4 molecules that help restore the hydrogen bond back, and put back together the double helix of the DNA, which is having really great success with people with extra cells growing, and so if there's no DNA, what do you make of that? Like, I don't understand. Maybe, I guess I'm open to anything, but that's just, I mean, what he's doing seems to make sense and it seems to be working,
Yeah. That's the most fascinating, like, little group in the health community I find right now. Like the people that say no supplements are necessary for healing. It's right. Like quantum healing. All you need is sunlight, grounding, real food, community. It's like, all this stuff's important, but you're right.
Just quantum. Yeah.
But it's like, I've sat down here. I mean, one of the reasons I'm glad I moved up here is I've connected with people that were kind of on an island. They didn't know anyone that was into health up here, and they're dealing with, breast cancer or whatever. And so I've been able to help a lot of people up here, sitting down face to face with them, giving them my Mitolife products for free. Here, try this.
Wow,
this is what I would do if I was dealing with it. And also look into, by the way, living spirulina. It's fresh frozen spirulina. And she's like, I'm feeling incredible. I'm actually getting back into algae. I'm going to interview a woman that owns, was it Energy Bits? It was like the spirulina and chlorella tablets. So Should be a fun conversation because I was almost an algitarian for a while. I was like living on blue-green algae drinks.
I remember that. Yeah, because we've been friends forever, so I remember that.
The AFA stuff, yeah.
With
chia seeds. So kind of going full circle. Bought some chia seeds recently. I always felt good on those, but
I was always intrigued with whenever Adam, because he's always against lipofuscin and stuff, and but he would talk about on various shows, on your show, I think too, about spirulina and its effect on cancer and stuff. And he was saying that like that would be the first thing he would reach for if that were something going on with him. And I always thought that's interesting. I need to look into that because obviously from David Wolf in the early days and as a raw foodist, I was really into spirulina. But then when I looked at Adam, I was like, okay, he knows about lipofuscin, but yet he's really heavy on the spirulina if someone has extra cancer cells growing. So I always thought that was interesting, but I haven't looked into it yet. But that would be an interesting show coming up.
Yeah, which it's an omega-3 source, right? There are omega-3 fatty acids and all these. I think all the microalgae, from what I've seen, have omega-3 fatty acids in it. So yeah, my current perspective on those is it's all in relationship to vitamin E. I mean, just studying the fat soluble vitamin balance, and Chris Masterjohn, I think, has had the best information over the years on, I think he did a whole lecture on A, D, E, and K and the relationship, because you can just dive into all these studies and, there's entire groups, as like Grant General, like vitamin A toxicity, but it's like, what about the other ones? Like, what about E and K2 and D? What's the relationship with all these? Because they work together and they protect from each other against toxicity of overdosing. And same thing with other things. Like, I grew up jumping fences to get into jacuzzis at different resorts with my friends. And I did
the same thing. That's so rad. Yeah.
Yeah. We got in trouble by guards several times. It was embarrassing, but and then just chlorinated pools. And I'm very sensitive to chlorine, and it's kind of be interesting because the place I'm moving to soon has a chlorinated pool that I'm going to look into switching over to UV and ozone, trying, maybe even bromine, which I think is a lot safer than chlorine. But those halogens, right? There's, like I mentioned bromine, there's chlorine, but there's also iodine, and then fluorine. So it's like there's this balance of all the elements. And I think the toxicity that we talk about with different elements, it's just when they're not countered with the other things. The big ones with chlorine are vitamin C and iodine. Like I wish I would have knew that growing up, because I probably would have had a lot better night's sleep. I wouldn't be itching all night like I was. But yeah, lately I've been diving into fluoride, and that's such an interesting one because there's actually healthy brands with super, super clean ingredients, like cold pressed spearmint oil and stuff, and then with sodium fluoride. And I delved into the research on it, and it's so interesting how it's one of these subjects that is so emotionally charged, but a lot of people have just gotten the memes so embedded deep into their psyche that, that NPC, muggle has the fluoride stare. But it's like, is it the fluoride stare, or is it the NPK stare, or is it, nutrient deficiency stare? How do you know it's the fluoride stare?
I know, right?
Maybe they're deficient in iodine stare, So I tried hydroxyapatite with and without glycerin, because that's a whole argument. Glycerin's toxin, you have to do hydroxyapatite without. Tried it, didn't work. I cavities did not heal, even though I was slamming, I'd say 1,000 micrograms of MK7 a day for years.
Oh, wow.
It kept my cavities at bay. I didn't need root canals recently, but they didn't reverse, which is totally possible. And I believe they would have reversed, and I wouldn't have had fillings if I would have combined with that too. And it's just the toothpaste. I mean, fluoride is a natural part of the enamel. It's not a toxin. It's a trace element. And it's like, you start looking into it, it's like, whoa, why hasn't anyone wrote a book on this? I mean, all the books I've seen on Amazon, because I went down the rabbit hole, it's like,
poison,
they're all poison.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because, you know, a lot of people don't realize, like, you know, like you were mentioning before, if you go into a pool with chlorine, you know, vitamin C and vitamin E, I always do vitamin E along with the iodine. That seems to be a really good hack if you're going to go into like a swimming pool and stuff. But the fluoride thing is really interesting too, because I feel like it's one of those things, like you said, it's so emotionally charged. You know, so my default sort of stance on it is that it's toxic, right? Because that's the sort of meme that we've been getting. And so we all have our little areas of interest, and we go down these little rabbit holes for a while, you know, and so I'll go down a rabbit hole, but you're studying something else. And so my default sort of stance on it, just without having studied it, we've done a couple shows on it, is that it's toxic, but I don't understand why it's so bad to read some books saying that it's good and look at the actual research. And maybe we've been told something incorrect. That's okay. That's all right. We can just change our mind. No big deal. Right.
Right. And there's so many details to it. I mean, this is where the details do matter, because I think a lot of people share these research studies and, you know, fluoride lowers IQ and here's 10 studies. But then the question is, where was it done? Was it with Chinese populations where they heavily fluoridate the water, like several fold times more than even the most fluoridated city in the United States? That's a consideration. And now are we talking about, on the subject of lowering IQ, are we talking about drinking fluoride, or are we talking about brushing our teeth with it? And if you're an adult, I don't know about you, but I don't swallow my toothpaste. Maybe when I was a baby, I wouldn't know any better. But I'm not swallowing. And they say, oh, it still gets in, you know, it's getting through mucous membranes. It's not that big of a dose compared to what's showed in the studies where they're drinking heavily fluoridated water. So it's like the dose makes the effect, you know, positively or negatively.
Well, then too, also you think about like IQ in children and, you know, during pregnancy. And one of the biggest things for that is iodine. So are those people that are going in that study, are they iodine deficient? Are they, you know, were their parents iodine deficient? You know, what's their iodine levels, you know?
Yeah. And over there in China, they have a lot of heavy metal problems with their population. So we know that aluminum and lead lowers IQ, all the heavy metals, mercury.
Yeah.
So did they control for those variables in the study? They did not. So that's.
Yeah. I know, it's so fascinating. I love all the different rabbit trails and different things you can study. And right now I'm getting into like heavy metals and suppositories and stuff like that. And, you know, so I'm going to be doing like a suppository sort of cleanse, like a month-long cleanse starting in April. So that'll be kind of fun, you know?
You know, it's funny. I would prefer to do a colonic than a suppository, which sounds more intense. And I've done it. You know, Luke's story almost got me on the Mitozen stuff, and I ordered a bunch, you know, Sandman, the melatonin.
Yeah.
I did do one melatonin. I think it was 450 milligrams, and that caused a detox reaction in me.
Really?
The next day, I felt like I was coming down with something. So I just took a whole bunch of methylene blue, you know, got out in the sun or my red light, and I felt better. But melatonin is no joke. That's another emotionally charged topic, because you have some people saying it'll shut down your own production, which is not true. It actually increases your endogenous production, like a lot of exogenous hormones that you can take. But also it's a cancer therapy. So Dr. Russell Reiter and Doris Lowe, I think, are the two top melatonin researchers in the world. I'd say Russell Reiter is the top. And the lecture, I think Chris Beats Cancer, I'm pretty sure, had him on, and the information on melatonin is incredible, like especially high dose.
Dude, people doing 100,000 milligrams of that IV. Like, how insane is that for cancer? And it has an effect, like, you know, and, you know, it's so interesting when you listen to people too, because like everyone's got their, like the holes in their research, you know, because I was listening to a Dr. Levy lecture just yesterday, and he was talking about that. If you take melatonin exogenously, you lower your endogenous production of it, or the ability to produce it. But, you know, I've listened to some people on Ben's podcast, Ben Greenfield, and, you know, some books and stuff like that. And, you know, they clearly show the opposite. So I think it's just like, you got to take everyone with a grain of salt, you know, everyone has holes, you know?
Yeah. And the message, my overall message with my personal brand and Mitolife is everything I talk about is not for everybody. So it's like, can some people get a negative effect from taking melatonin? Yes. And that's probably the people that are, have excess serotonin, something like that. They're not clearing serotonin effectively. So taking melatonin, it's not going to convert because your body already has enough. And so you're going to have more serotonin issues. That's a possibility. But what if you have, what if your serotonin's fine? So it's, I think the effect with all these supplements are going to be different. With the Mitolife supplements, I get responses all across the board. It was neutral. I felt worse. I felt better. I'd say the overwhelming amount has felt better.
Right.
But
yeah, it's funny because like I get a lot of I get your like people that like people will always think that you and I think the same on every topic, or they'll come to me and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Matt changed his mind. What do you think of this? And I'm just like, dude, Matt is going down some rabbit trails and he loves to experiment, and he's sharing his experiments on social media, and he may have figured out he was doing something wrong, at least for a while. Maybe it was not wrong overall. Maybe it was just wrong for a time of life. And he's just sharing that. And if you feel good eating more sugar and Matt says that he's not feeling really good on sugar, it's okay. Have some more sugar. I keep telling these people like, dude, just because he's changed his mind on something, it doesn't matter. Like you could be your own doctor kind of a thing. And it's like, it's nauseating for me.
Yeah, I've noticed some of my friends. I think like Bob, my friend, he went keto recently when I did, or went lower carb, not zero carb. Some people were saying, and I think the cool thing about me being vocal about my journey in self-experimentation is what I've noticed is it gives other people permission to change. If they've been stuck in pro-metabolic or whatever it is, whatever lifestyle it is, and they feel like it's not working for them. Maybe they're gaining weight, or they're getting brain fog, or their sleep's going down, or their mood's not good, whatever it is. And they feel kind of stuck and they can't move. And then I come along and I'm just like fluid, and I'm like, oh, I'm just trying this now. They're like, oh, okay. I have permission to try it too, I guess, So that's my favorite thing about it. I'm not telling people to go lower carb. I'm just like, this is, and I was going off, it's tricky because I had a few things going on the last year where, I think I've been pretty vocal about blood donation. And the first one, for whatever reason, I felt great. And maybe most people will feel great from their first one. I don't know. It does seem like a pretty accelerated detox path where it just kind of opens up the liver and it could dump, and you're redistributing metals and minerals around. But the second one, during the draw, I felt like I was getting my energy, like my chi sapped, like sucked out of me.
Interesting.
And it lasted for months. And then for the next several months after my second donation, I started losing my memory, which was very scary, short and long term.
Wow.
So I was forgetting my gate code, 4-digit gate code, very hard to forget. It was like the year of I forget my brother's birthday, or I made it something easy to remember and I was still forgetting it. And that was the first wake up call to go, oh shoot, maybe I should, reconsider this iron thing. And then I started to get these flashbacks of, Romania Dean Thomas at a conference, doing the wrist test and saying, you're slightly anemic. And then hearing 3 other people over the last decade tell me the same thing, looking at my face, just doing almost like a body scan thing at various conferences. And everyone said that I'm anemic. So it was kind of connecting those dots, and that it just made me reconsider the whole thing. And I didn't know that it was going to create this, cataclysmic seismic rift in the community just because I started questioning it. And the funny thing is, it's not like, because people like to paint me a certain way. He was saying everyone's iron toxic. Now he's saying everyone's iron deficient. No, I'm not. That's what some people are saying that I'm saying. I'm saying that some people are overloaded and some people are iron deficient. And as Caitlin Hardigan said on my show, the Iron Protocol, she would say most people are iron deficient, not iron overloaded. But she will say that some people are iron overloaded too. So it's a balanced approach. It's not a this or that. Same thing with keto. I'm not saying everyone would benefit from low carb. Some people need high carb. But for some people, high carb will give them pre-diabetes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of nuance. And I think that a lot of people should just take what you and I are saying and other people that are, out there. I think what they ultimately need to do is really look within and see, do I really feel good? I always feel amazing when I donate blood. So I'm actually going to go, I think let's see, do I do it in April or May? I forget. But I'm going to be going and doing it soon. And I think it's it's one of those things where it's okay if you hear from someone who, I don't know what, I just think there's too much of this total reliance on what people are saying rather than looking within themselves and seeing if something works for them or if they feel drawn to it or whatever the case may be,
Yeah. I wonder if that's a reflection of the disconnection that most people have with their own intuition and with their own body. And you hear that meme so often. I mean, when I create a post or share something where I'm announcing that I changed my mind, there's always numerous comments where they're like, we always have to listen to our body, but that's most people are not living that. They might give lip service to it, but they're not, because they're following these influencers. And I always say my CLF protocol is not for everyone. It's more of an anti-aging protocol, which I think is more broad. I'm not targeting any specific condition, and I'd say most people would benefit from it, most likely.
Right.
But maybe someone genetically doesn't do well with vitamin E, so that part of the protocol they could leave out or whatever. But
yeah, there's so much nuance. It's kind of like you said, social media, there's it's really a fast track to personal development in a sense, because you have to have this ability to sort of step back and say, you know what, I'm not going to be fighting with these people, or I'm just going to change my mind. I'm not going to let things bother me. And there's a lot of that where I just have to step back and say, I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm just going to post stuff and, let the chips fall where they may. But so I wanted to talk about water. We just been kind of chit chatting for a while. For those that don't know, you just released the Mitolife brand water filter under counter system. And we had a few questions from our Patreon group that we'll get to in a little while, but just talk about your journey with water and your love for it, and the development of this thing, which has been a couple years in production in the making, but probably 3 to 4 years in development, right?
Yeah, at least 3 years, I would say. Yeah, so it's funny, before I heard of quantum health and that whole light water magnetism thing, I was into it, into light water and magnetism right when I got into health. So when I discovered green vegetable juicing and raw veganism, I pretty much combined that instantly with raw to earth grounding sheets. Of course, being barefoot and actually grounding to the earth myself. But it also started this journey with photons, biophotons, and sunlight and light therapy devices, and Bob Beck protocol with all the magnetism devices and microcurrent devices, various zappers, all kinds of Rife machines, which I kind of lump into kind of the magnetism, electromagnetism stuff.
Right.
But the water piece, that one was probably the most energy intensive with the investing and the traveling, because I believe I started with reverse osmosis, just like your standard RO. And then, of course, the Berkey, and then the Mega Home water distiller, $230 or whatever on eBay. And then I moved to the Aqua something, like the stainless steel water distiller for like 500 and some bucks. So no plastics. I was continually like upgrading.
Yeah.
And then I saw Daniel Vitalis lecture live at a music festival I was at, and met him and talked to him in person. Went to an after party, saw his jug of spring water at the party table, and the 5-gallon glass carboy, and that's how I knew I was at the right house. And I just started down that rabbit hole of, findaspring.com. And being in Southern California, I quickly discovered that the springs were these heavily guarded secret locations that people would never list on that website because it's a limited resource, especially if it's a seasonal spring. I don't think there are any 24/7 springs down there to my awareness, but wells, there's a couple. There's the Carlsbad well, and then there's an equestrian center, like a horse ranch. I don't know if she still runs it.
Quick question. Do you guys know what the smallest antioxidant in the known universe is? It's actually molecular hydrogen. It's 400 times smaller than vitamin C, 700 times smaller than CoQ10. Because of that, it has the ability to permeate every cell and tissue in the body, even down to the DNA itself. It's a really cool paper called Molecular Hydrogen, a Preventative and Therapeutic Medical Gas for Various Diseases, 2017, by Min Yang. He says here, recently, H2 has emerged as a novel medical gas with potentially broad applications. Dole et al. First reported the therapeutic effects of H2 all the way back in 1975 in squamous cell carcinoma mouse model. Crazy. Further along, it says studies have also shown that H2 improves lung injuries induced by many other factors: smoke inhalation, lipopolysaccharides, paraquat, monocrotaline, extensive burns, etc. And then it says here in 2013, a study showed that pretreatment helped with cigarette-induced lung damage from airway mucus production and airway epithelium damage in rats. So this is really an amazing tool. I use the AquaCure. I drink about 64 ounces of molecular hydrogen infused water per day. I breathe it while I work. It's an amazing, amazing device. I highly recommend it. Check it out on today's show page or learn more at our store, biochargeme.com. Yeah.
That was an arm and a leg. So that one was $2 a gallon. And for a guy making $10 an hour, working several jobs, going to school, it was quite a chore. I would drive there in my Prius or whatever and fill up, like 30 gallons at a time.
That's what we did. Yeah.
And I would stand there and talk to her. I think I set up my inversion swing and she would like hang on, and it was fun chatting with her about health stuff. And that was the only water that ever made me tingle. It was like a full body, like tickling effect. There was something really interesting. She said some Native American doused that location, and they told her not to drill there, the well, and she did it anyway. And I forget what it was, like 60 feet, 80 feet. And she hit this, she called it like magical water. So I was on that for a while. I can't remember how many months, maybe 6 months or something. Then it got too expensive. I got lazy making that huge drive. And so I went to Carlsbad. And then I later learned that they cut the water with filtered municipal water. So Carlsbad well water is not pure well. So I'm just kind of describing like my journey of going from step to step and like continually trying to find better and more efficient, drinking water. And then I went on a Yosemite camping trip with my friends, David and Will. And that was the second time I got the full body tingle. I don't know if anyone knows, when you drive into Yosemite, there's like a watering hole where there's like a couple waterfalls, and it's covered in like moss. It almost looks like Fern Gully, like such a magical fantasy, like little spot.
Little fairyland, right?
Right. I knew immediately. So I just got out of the car and everyone was kind of worried because they're like, what about microbes and blah, blah, blah. And I just held my bottle under the stream and just drank it. I was like, wow. What a good start to this camping trip. So my original goal was to drive there from San Diego, once a month to fill up, but that wouldn't have been practical. So fortunately, I I was introduced, or I stumbled upon, I can't remember how it happened, to Pristine Hydro. Went in there, met the very eccentric people in there,
to say the least.
And that definitely catapulted me forward in my understanding. That inspired me on a lot of different, basically took me on a new direction away from like raw veganism to more to focus on kind of like Weston A. Price and bee products and stuff like that. But then I got on the water filter that they sold, which was essentially like a souped up RO system. And it was one of a kind, and promoted that for years, the travel system, because it used to be under $1,000, which I put it on credit, and I was living with my parents. I put it on PayPal credit, brought it home, hooked it up to their bathroom faucet. I was like, oh my gosh, I have real water for the first time in my life. Acid-free, contaminant-free, magnesium bicarbonate water. This is incredible. No pharmaceuticals. It's taking out everything. It's essentially distilled water, but non-aggressive. So it's not aggressively robbing minerals from my body, which I think distilled has its benefits in context, but long-term, it is not good. So did that for several years, and then moved to multiple places, different cabins in Southern California. I went from like Big Bear to Idlewild, and I was installing my filters like under the counter, on top of the counter. And I did a lot of filter changes over the years, and what a pain that was to do the push inline, the cartridges when you have to switch those out, because a filter is only as good as the maintenance that you do on it. That has been my main message with the Mitolife filter. If you don't service it, you're not going to get clean water. So you might as well not even get the filter, because you're not going to keep up with putting new filters in there. So, once they're full, they're full. You have to take them out and replace them. So that led me to thinking about how I could do it better. Not only better, but more affordably, because I think a lot of these filters are marked up. I mean, I've looked at, some of these, health websites, and they're selling, 12, 14 stage filters for astronomical prices. I think I've seen $2,000 to $3,000. And then of course you have Enagic Kangen multi-level marketing filters, which I had a friend bring to my house once, and they don't tell you need a carbon block filter before. It's not a filter, it's an alkaline water ionizer. It creates alkalizing water, that they say now. That's the marketing term. But what it's doing is it's electrocuting the water with metal plates, and it's solving the acid problem in a way, but not in the good way. It's way different from deionization, which is what my filter uses. So started developing this filter, started messing around with it, and me and the team just started looking at the playing field of all the water filters out there, saying, I wonder if we can design from scratch something that is affordable, that's easy to service, that's easy to use, that works, that's effective, that doesn't compromise our philosophy on water quality. And I started looking at water conferences. So just like there are like supply conferences for supplements, where you can go and find ingredient suppliers, they have these water conferences. And a lot of these companies got their start at these conferences, where all you have to do to start a water filtration business is search, drinking water conference, go to it once a year, find a booth, connect with the people, and just slap Mitolife on their product, or slap your brand on their product, and boom, you have a business. The problem with that is you're not innovating anything. You're just basically just rebranding something that already exists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We didn't want to do that. I actually had a popular brand approach me. Well, it was hours and hours on the phone trying to convince me to private label their filter, their drinking water system, that didn't use DI, that didn't use magnesium at the end. It used like calcium, I think, which is calcite, which I'll get into remineralization later. So I had all these opportunities to like compromise my morals and say, I'm done with the blood, sweat, and tears the last 3 years. I just want to get it done. People were angry. I'm like Elon Musk with the Cybertruck. It's like, when is it going to come out? It's like,
I know everyone's asking. I remember talking about it. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's been the most frequently asked question. It's like, oh, it's delayed again. This is a pipe dream, and then,
right.
Appreciate people like you that didn't stop believing in it. So,
For sure.
because it's just a million steps to get to even a prototype. And the biggest hang up with our filter was the housing is not private labeled. So the metal box that the Mitolife drinking water comes in, the filters are basically hanging off this box from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just buy that box anywhere. We like 3D printed, basically like created that in a software, and then you had to find metal workers, and then we had to find ones that could do it and put the gauge in there and then put the brackets in there. That was probably the longest process. And then after that, it was finding a facility, not in someone's house, a facility to build it and put it together for us. And actually, screw the filters in, put it in a pretty box and then ship it out. There's like a million steps. So,
Wow.
So yeah, it was quite the process. Just a lot of hours on the phone. I can count this. Truly a labor of love. It was such a relief to finally get it out. And of course, this is only version 1, which there's not a huge difference between version 1 and version 2. Really the only difference is our main production run that's going to get going here in a few weeks or a month or whatever. It's going to be a stainless steel housing instead of a white housing.
Okay.
And then on the top, for anyone that has it, there's basically screws that are exposed on the top, and those are what hold the brackets in. So those will be flush on the top. So you'll have a nice, completely flat surface. So just mostly cosmetic stuff.
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
yes.
just wanted to get it out there and just, kind of, it cost me more to do this small run of the white units, but I really just wanted to get it out because people were begging for it. So
yeah, no, that's so cool. That's amazing. And so now they're available on Mitolife right now, right? Because some of your products go out of stock or you run sales and they're gone for a while, but right now, at least it's available.
Yep. Yeah. And we probably won't have a sale on it for a little while. So people that already bought it don't have to worry, you didn't buy it too soon. And maybe some people are waiting for us to put it on sale. It's just one of those things. And I think you saw me mention, I invested $1 million or more into this project. Like I said, most of the money I make through Mitolife goes right back in for these new projects, because I don't want to just stay stagnant. I want to continually grow and provide more solutions for people. And this is an ultimate water solution, where if you can't afford a whole house water filter, if you're on municipal water, you don't have to go to the health food store anymore. You don't have to go to the water store and fill up the jugs. You don't have to buy bottled water at the store. You have right on tap from your sink. All you have to do is find a licensed plumber to install it. And I don't recommend it, but I've installed it myself. It's actually very simple. I could quickly describe. There's basically water in, and then the brine or water or wastewater out. Those are the main two lines. And then of course you have your line going to the storage tank. And the water in most cases, you won't have to do anything except unscrew the inlet on your water. So basically there's this tea that we include. So it's called John Guest. And actually on the website, if you see the third picture on the product page, you can actually see the pieces there that we include we call it the premium install kit.
Okay.
And we include all the tubing, the really nice faucet, which is better quality than you'll find with most systems, the storage tank, and then the pieces that you'll need. So basically you have this tea where even if you're renting, which I've done, when you move, all you have to do is turn that blue valve off, so water's not shooting out anymore.
Right.
You could leave that there. No one will ever know. And then disconnect the hoses, plug the drain valve, the drain saddle, which we include the plug with it. Just keep it all in the little Ziploc bag under your sink, and you're done. The hardest part is the drain, because you have to drain it pretty much. I think it's above the P trap, like a 1/4-inch hole with like a drill bit. And then you could just basically shove the, and it's not a huge stream coming out of it's a trickle that's going to come out of your brine, your wastewater. So that's basically what the water is filtering out, is coming out of that line. So hopefully I'm not getting too technical, but some people are curious. I think a lot of the questions I've been getting recently is it hard to install? And, I've built saltwater aquariums custom myself, so maybe I'm different, but you don't have to, glue plumbing together or anything like that. The craziest thing you have to do is drill into that black drain line under your sink. That's the craziest part of the whole process. Yeah,
that's not bad. And, a lot of times people are either not handy or not, or just too busy. You just, get a plumber. Be super easy. How often would someone, assuming they don't have a whole house filter, how often would they want to change those filters?
So yeah, it's 7-stage. And so we have basically combination media in the second one. So the first stage is sediment. Second stage is KDF 55 and granular activated carbon. Third stage is the RO membrane, which can produce 50 gallons per day. And what's interesting about our system, it's a small detail, but I find it kind of cool. After those first 3 stages, it goes into the storage tank. And then from the storage tank, when you flip the faucet on above your sink to fill your water bottle, it actually runs it through the 4th to 5th, which are primary and secondary deionization, which remove the acids, and then through the remineralization, which is Corisex, which actually creates magnesium bicarbonate, which is an awesome form of magnesium, and then through coconut carbon. And to answer your question, depending on which stage it is, most of them are between 6 and 12 months. So if you're in, LA or New York City, it's probably going to be closer to that 6-month mark. I'd say maybe even San Diego. But if you're on a well, then probably the 12-month mark. Our system's very effective at taking out iron. So the KDF 55 actually removes chlorine, hydrogen sulfide, heavy metals, some radon, VOCs, iron. And it's actually interesting because it's like using like copper and zinc to do it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So got a full circle. And then the DI, the purpose of having 2 is redundancy. So the filter that I was using before this for years,
just had 1.
Yeah. And the education wasn't, it might've had 2. I think it was, no, actually it did have 2, but the education wasn't there of how quickly those burn out. So
interesting.
When we were designing this and trying to find people to build it with us, hours of phone calls with, water suppliers, they didn't get our philosophy. And I remember the guy saying, you don't need DI. Why would you need DI? Those only last 3 months at most. But we believe that sulfuric and nitric acid, but not only that, that's beyond acid rain, which are created from burning, combusting fossil fuels, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, end up in our water supply, very corrosive acids. I've been talking about that for years. I think it's a real issue, more of an issue in different parts of the world. So it's not uniform throughout the world, but depending on who you are, it could be really bad or not as bad, but still there. I mean, a slow drip of acid is still going to hurt your system, these very corrosive acids. But then you look at municipal. So if you're not on a well or a spring, like a lot of the houses here in Idaho, if you're on municipal water, city water, then you're going to have industrial acids in the water, including hydrofluorosilicic acid, which talking about fluoride, I'm not promoting drinking fluoride. I'm saying, different, we don't want to drink it, especially daily in significant amounts. So they're actually adding this acid form of fluoride to the water. But there's a slew of acids that are added at the wastewater treatment plant to our water. And those are probably not good for human health. So
why did you, I'm curious about why you went from when it goes to the third stage, then it goes into the tank. And then when someone turns on the faucet, it goes from the tank to the second DI and the carbon. How come you made those after the reservoir? It's interesting.
Well, when it runs
pretty cool.
The last stage, it runs through the coconut carbon, and a lot of systems utilize that to, it basically like polishes the water or like improves the taste, but it's doing a lot more than that. It's actually removing some contaminants. There's this marketing, and I actually mentioned this in a live that I did with my friend Stefano, that like I'll just name it AquaTrue, and I'm not saying it's a bad filter, but their marketing is interesting because, and then there's another company that does this as well. They speak out against storage tanks, which the storage tank basically contains a bladder on the inside and it fills with water. And yes, if you let it sit for 3 months, 6 months, a year, say at your vacation home, your town home, whatever, of course, stuff's going to grow in there, right? It's even, if it's a warm environment, it's dark. But if you're going through the water, if you're watering your plants with it, if you have a family, if you're draining that tank and it's refilling daily, you don't have to worry about bacterial growth in there, or viruses or whatever. And if you are worried about that, you put a UV light. You just need an outlet inside, which not everyone has an outlet under their sink. But if you do, on Amazon or whatever, you can buy basically a mini 5-watt ultraviolet light, which that could be your last stage before it goes up into the faucet. But the idea was basically just to give it this last minute boost of freshness. So you get basically the magnesium being created right away. You get coconut carbon right away as it's coming out your faucet into your drinking water vessel.
That's awesome.
So the water is not just going from the tank to the faucet, because maybe if there's stuff in there that potentially, I don't know if it's an issue or not, I doubt it. But having those 4 stages in between the tank and your faucet, I like. This media is so compact that not a lot of stuff's going to make it through. So the water's already filtered in the tank, but it's just going through these other processes. So
I like that, because someone was asking me recently about, getting a whole house filter, and they're asking about like, do I still need to get like an under counter filter? Right. And I said, like, I don't trust the piping system of houses. So like, even if you spend $10,000 on a whole house RO system, which there are a few that I know of, and there's another one being developed right now that seems interesting, but even if you had one of those, it's going from that system completely pure, and then it's traveling through pipes, and then it's going into your hot water heater, and then it's coming out, and then it's going through more pipes to come through. So I'm a fan of like multiple stages of water filtration. So we have a whole house filter now. We're on municipal water, of course, because we're in a neighborhood, but we have a whole house system. We had a water structuring system after that. And then from there, it goes to, we have shower filters and then a filter underneath the sink, which I'm going to be upgrading to yours. So we'll give mine to my parents, kind of like, you
Awesome.
do, same kind of thing. And so we'll be upgrading, but there's levels to water, and I wouldn't feel comfortable just with a whole house RO. I would if I was just showering maybe, but to drink it, I like to have that point of source as well,
Yeah, and it really depends. I mean, I think most whole house filters are going to be an issue with what you described if they're not using deionization, because if you still have corrosive acids in the water and then it's running through copper pipes to get to running through the house, sometimes it's on the other side of the house, then it'll actually eat up the copper pipes, and you're going to be microdosing copper for decades or whatever, how long you live there. So yeah, I think you were referring to the flow motion system, and that's actually what I'm bringing to my next house. I'm glad I didn't donate it or give it away or sell it because it's been sitting downstairs. It was more to maintenance. I mean, there was definitely more parts to go wrong on it. So if you're worried about the complexity, you have to have access to a good plumber, basically, unless you want to really learn how to maintenance yourself, which is kind of fun. I mean, I kind of like that. But looking at the unit, it looks like a pharmaceutical kind of equipment. It's kind of intimidating. The Home Flow 2000. It's around, it's around 10K or so. And I had 2 storage tanks on my main water line downstairs in my like control room, I call it, with all my solar batteries and stuff, charge controllers. But that's more of an on-grid thing too. So the nuance there with that system is it's a lot of electricity. I would not recommend being off-grid with that system because it's like 2 pumps. I think when they're both kicked on, it's like 800 watts.
Wow.
Because it's filling the storage tanks, basically, when I have these storage tanks with floats on them, and then it pulls from the storage tanks into your house. So, in between those storage tanks, I would have like a vortexer and then my analemma structure or whatever. But more practical, I think, for a lot of people, especially for affordability, especially if you're on a well. I think it's probably 1% are on a spring. The Vicwa system, which we might create something like this at some point, but it's a 2-stage with UV. So it's a whole house system for about $1,500 on eBay.
Oh, wow.
And that's sediment and carbon. So it's basically just a very bare bones, system. But it works. If your main concern is just bacteria and iron, which is usually the case on a well, then that's really all you need. But I would say if you have that system, you definitely want to stack it with the point of use under sink, in your kitchen, the Mitolife one.
I think it's no, I just think it's cool to like have, to get involved in this, and there's levels of where you can go with it. People ask me, is the Berkey good? I'm like, yeah, it's good. Like all of it is good. It's just to whatever level. So we have 2 Berkeys now. We used to drink them, but now we save them for storage, for like in case the grid goes down, doesn't require any electricity. Right. So I recommend just just starting somewhere. Like, you don't have to start with the best system, but start somewhere. But what's cool about the Mitolife is that it's not like $4,000, it's relatively cost effective for something like this.
Well, yeah. And I recently put into place like a payment plan thing that's not through PayPal, which I do not recommend PayPal because they are scammers and they'll steal your money. It's happened to a lot of my friends, happened to me. I've heard about it. Yeah. They're not good. Yeah. Your money's not safe in PayPal. So yeah, this is through a separate, like through Shopify, basically. And I wish the system would have been around, 7-8 years ago when I started getting into this. Because going back to the filter change, that is the main benefit of our system. I mean, there's a couple main benefits. But when it's time to change the filters every 6 or 12 months, and some will last 2 years up to. So that's like the remineralization, the RO, maybe the carbon. It kind of depends. But usually like the sediment, like the first 2 will get hit pretty hard with iron and stuff. But all you do is you put like a cloth, like a hand towel underneath, turn off the water, which is just a simple valve. We include it, turn off the tank, and then just, turn everything off basically so you don't flood your kitchen and then unscrew the filter. And it's open source. So we do sell replacement filters, which make it easy. You could just go to our website and then order the filters individually. So whichever one you need, but we have the part number, the service life. Yeah, it was basically the remineralization and the reverse osmosis will last up to 2 years. So 1 to 2 years. Everything else, 6 to 12 months.
Interesting. Okay.
But you don't have to buy the filters from us. They're just OmniPure. So it's the OmniPure Q series. So as far as we know, no other filter has been open source like this, where we're not making it proprietary and special Mitolife filters, and we're peeling off their sticker and putting ours on there. No, we're transparent. You could buy those anywhere. If you want to make sure you get the right ones, yeah, you can go through us. So to make it easy. But you could also mix and match. You can customize it. So as I mentioned, if you are, if you have more iron in the water or less iron, or you're on a, for example, on my system, I have double magnesium at the end. So I have, it's a mix of Corsex and the coconut carbon.
Okay.
So instead of just coconut carbon on the end, I have double the mag, which you could do that if you want. That's an option.
Yeah.
So we just give like a template of, a broad, for most people, what's going to help, but you don't have to follow that template. You can take out and add whatever, double media you want. So
that's awesome. What would be really cool is if you had like, I'm someone who wants to be more of a Luddite than I am, but I think it would be really cool if you had some sort of like reminder system. Like you could do a test of your water and say, okay, it's, the filter is not filtering as much iron as it used to, or it's not filtering as much fluoride or chlorine as it used to. And when it gets to this level, you get like a 2-week reminder or something like that, like something like that. I don't think it exists in the market, but that would be really cool because, people with busy families and lives and stuff, it's like they just get behind and all of a sudden it's been 8 months and they haven't redone their filters,
Well, what I recommend, if you have a printer, on the product page, click on the, under features, the install guide. It's so our install guide is digital. So that's like whether you're doing it, your plumber. So click that, it'll open up a PDF. You can save it. You could print it. I would print it. Or you could save it on your computer and fill it out on your desktop or whatever. But on the 5th page, there's a page where you could put the purchase date, installed by, the plumber's phone number. That would really help. Or just set a reminder if you're into Apple products, use the reminder thing or whatever, and just, set one 6 months from now or 12 months from now. That's probably the best way to do it. I would say just staying on top of the DIs every 6 to 12 months. I would say maximum just once a year, switch out both of the DI cartridges. But yes, you can use the TDS meter. Of course, there's multiple things to measure in the waters. That's just one aspect. Total dissolved solids, parts per million, how much dissolved stuff is in the water. And that will start to creep up. So that is a super quick and dirty way to figure it out, is just measuring that, once a month.
I am such a huge fan of ozone therapy. To me, having your own ozone machine for you and your family is like having a doctor, a hospital, and even an emergency room all in your own home. In my opinion, it's the single most important piece of equipment you can own. So what is ozone? Well, ozone is essentially a molecule with 3 oxygen atoms attached, and the synergy of what that does inside the human body is absolutely astounding. It is completely safe. It's been used since 1856 to disinfect operating room tables. It can be used topically for bacterial infections, or the V word, which we can't pronounce these days. It's antifungal, it's antiparasitic, it's anti-yeast. It activates both arms of the immune system. It can be used externally on non-healing wounds, on ulcers. It can be used rectally for systemic whole body treatments to improve liver function, to help prevent diseases. And it can be applied topically as an oil to the skin for virtually any skin condition. You can use it in saline water for eye drops. Some people breathe the gas through olive oil. You can do sinus, ear, rectal, and vaginal insufflations. You can even drink the water, which is what I do. Or you can use the water as a sanitizer for vegetables. You can spray it on your skin for any wounds. You can use it on yeast infections for your dogs and spray it on your plants. We've done both of those. You can even do full body ozone bagging or ozone sauna sessions using our relaxed far infrared sauna. And you can do injections with it, which is called prolozone. I've had that done as well. Typically, IV is the standard, but it's been shown that rectal insulfations is about 94% as effective as IV therapies, minus the drive time, the money, the needle sticks in your veins. You don't want any of that. So my favorite machine is from Promolife. They use a cold corona discharge on their ceramic cells. They have adjustable ozone levels, which is really important for an ozone machine. They're made in the USA. They have free shipping over $99 to the continental United States, but they ship worldwide as well. They've been the industry leader since 1999. They have awesome customer service. They have a lifetime warranty, a 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you use our code EHR10, you'll get 10% off. So check it out on today's show page or on biochargeme.com.
I would say, or really whenever you remember, or to show people that come over, just have the tap water, fill up a shot glass, put it in there, $10 TDS meter, show them the parts per million. Because a lot of people have to see the difference to believe it. And there will be some parts per million in the Mitolife water, and it'll vary depending on where you are. But that's actually magnesium that it's adding in. So I wanted to mention remineralization. There's only two media available right now. It's Corasex and calcite. So Corasex is basically magnesium, calcite is calcium. And a lot of people don't get, especially in the mainstream community, they're like, oh, calcium's super important, but we forget about magnesium.
Yeah.
And most of the water filters use calcite if they do remineralize at all. A lot of them don't. So we had the option to include both or just magnesium, and we chose to go with just magnesium because we feel like most people need more magnesium than calcium. And calcium, I get mine mostly from heavy cream in my coffee. That's like my main calcium source right now. Consume a lot of heavy cream, but also I eat cottage cheese, good source of calcium.
Yeah.
We don't really need to be drinking it all day, every day. So,
it's funny is like when you start studying water and how it affects your system, it's like, water becomes your blood in like 30 to 40 minutes, and I just look around at what people are drinking and, my wife, Kate, and she, her parents are just like, I just laugh. Like they just drink tap water. Like they just drink tap water, and they'll go to like Lake Tahoe and they say, oh, the tap water, it's like mountain water up here. It just tastes so good, and it's unbelievable to me what people will put their body through if they don't filter their water and they just think it tastes good. And it's so important, especially your shower water, but your drinking water, all of it is so important. And if you don't have those electrolytes and those minerals coming in, like you're really doing damage. And that's got to be part of the calcification aspect of the CLF protocol, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think they're increasing their future supplement bill because that's going to require more systemic enzymes in the future to break down that scar tissue that's inevitably going to be created from the inflammation caused by the irritating, just non-filtered water. It causes an immune reaction to get basically dissolved rocks in your water coming in all at once. I mean, mineral water here and there, I like it. It's great. If that's the choice between that and tap water, I'll usually choose, Perrier or Gerolsteiner or whatever is available, San Pellegrino. But as your daily water, you're basically going to create deficiencies over time. So what I like to focus on is mineral balancing, and everyone has their own philosophy. I had shows on HTMA, and, the Lawrence Wilson, Paul Eck crew will say that you never want to supplement isolates because you're going to be throwing things out of whack. So, but then again, they promote Limcomin supplement, which is like a combination of a whole bunch of isolates. It's just like their ratio, that's the good ratio for some reason. But in my opinion, I think it's important to take things by themselves because that you're hitting the clinically effective dose of whether it's vitamin E, which minimum is 400 IU, but to get a lot of benefits, it's more like 1,000, 1,500 IU.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do that for life every day, but if you've been deficient your whole life, then maybe it's good to take more for a little bit. I mean, I did that with cod liver oil and had tremendous benefit to my metabolism and body temperature from taking a lot of cod liver oil first to, recover from my 2/3 of my life being plant-based and not getting any vitamin A, only beta carotene.
Yeah. Well, that's like the same with that study I was telling you about ALS and niacinamide. They were saying like the minimum dosage is 3,000 milligrams. And typically like the capsules will be 500 milligrams or something. And so when you isolate a supplement like that, you can really, and same with vitamin C, you can make sure that you're getting just the dose. But when you combine like the D3 with the K2, you're diluting one of them because you have the other one in there as well,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, back to the magnesium, it's like the Tahoe water. It's like generally it's going to be like a lot of calcium in the water and maybe some iron. So magnesium is going to help with both of those. And I take multiple forms of magnesium. So the magnesium bicarbonate, the taurate, the bisglycinate that I sell. So I sell a taurate bisglycinate blend. And then baths as much as possible, magnesium chloride or magnesium sulfate, they both help. And I think it's optimal to do all three if you can. And, you don't have to buy a float tank. You don't have to go floating, although that's like the accelerated way to load up. You can just buy 8-pound bags like I did for years of magnesium chloride. And I would use at least half the bag or the full bag. I mean, it's like a $15 to $30 bath, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I know. You better stay in for the full 20 at least, right? Yeah, that's what we do with our kids. We got the filtered water. We have the bath filter as well. And then we put some, soap that's non-toxic, and we put, magnesium, the stuff from Max Vitality in there. And, and I think that getting that into kids and, it's like you said, getting multiple forms of these things, I think is really important, and I think one of the biggest things is like the water piece is so key because people are doing supplements and doing all these other things for their health, but they're, not drinking the best water. And I would just invite people to start going down the rabbit trail and try different filters, try different things. And ultimately where I'm at right now is I'm going to be upgrading to your system. But, that's just for everyone to decide,
Yeah, it definitely affects our consciousness. I mean, you mentioned our blood earlier, and the quality of our blood is definitely built off the quality of our water. So our blood is only as healthy as the water that we're intaking. And some people say we don't need to drink any water. We can just get it from fruits and making metabolic water, making deuterium depleted water from, being in ketosis and
that's easy water. Yeah.
Right. And there's something to that. I mean, I think when you're intermittent fasting or doing a fast, I do think that occurs and I do think it's beneficial, but is it beneficial long-term to be dry fasting? Probably not. I think we do that naturally overnight. Right. Generally, I'm in bed by 11 o'clock and I'm up at, 7 or something. That's a good amount of hours of dry fasting.
Yeah.
But yeah, having a clear medium to use for your teas, your coffee, colon cleansing, your enemas, smoothies, and all the fun stuff that you could do with it after the filter. I've delved into that pretty deeply I interviewed the infopathy guy on my show, which is very interesting because you're introducing like EMFs literally from cellular or Wi-Fi through this IC pad. So basically you connect the audio jack to your phone and you have to pay for a subscription, but you could run like aspirin into it or vitamin E or testosterone or DHEA or whatever. I mean, I've tried it with my family. I think I mentioned on a show, I gave my dad like a hormone cocktail and he had trouble sleeping that night because I was giving like this androgen testosterone boost.
he's like working out at 3 a.m.
Yeah. And water is so amazing that changed the mouthfeel. And this is for a very skeptical. I mean, my family has seen me do all sorts of crazy stuff over the last decade, or 13 years being into health. And some of the stuff I have them try, they're like, whoa, like I feel it tastes different. And you could do blindfold tests with your family and friends. Like, and I think I tried, like you've talked about, the George Wiseman, like AquaCure units. And I was doing like 432 hertz or 528 hertz and running that through the water. That definitely changed it. I actually like that effect more than the hydrogen effect. I think I was feeling that more. Then there's, of course, the Analemma wand, which is like the mother water, which creates like coherent water. I just interviewed them for the second time, and
interesting.
They sold me on that more than vortexing. They made a good point. Vortexing is good, and that's how nature does it. And he was a big fan of Victor Schauberger, but his argument was basically that vortexing is not enough anymore, with basically all the negativity in the world and all these people on pharmaceutical drugs, and everyone's angry, and we have EMFs. That's actually affecting how long water stays coherent just sitting out in that environment. So when you vortex it, he was saying basically it only holds its structure for a few seconds. So you basically have to vortex it, down it really quickly.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So at the Analemma, I guess they've done a lot of studies kind of beyond, the GDV camera, which I've played with over the years, which, the pretty much like the Curling photography. A lot of companies use this, and it's like, is that really proof? Because I could do crazy experiments here with it and, basically show anything. So it's interesting, but they've done hardcore like lichen age studies and different ones, plant growth studies, biophoton emission studies. Well, I guess that's the same thing as this, but but yeah, the Analemma like increases biophoton output of the water by 40%, increases plant growth, all sorts of stuff. So I've been having fun with that. That's been my main thing. So basically, I've been using that plus the MRET pitcher, which I think was on the Truth.
From Shine Blossom, right?
And I think that was on the Truth About Cancer documentary. They mentioned it, like molecular resonance effect technology. I think that actually came out of Ukraine, I believe, like wherever there was the radiation spill, because the people were drinking from the spring and they weren't affected by the radiation. And they studied the water, and I guess it was getting hit with this specific infrared frequency that was changing the structure of the water. So.
Wow. That's so interesting. Yeah, there's so many levels to it, from, like you mentioned, the easy water. There's like the Willard water, distilled water, alkalized water, ionized water, deuterium depleted water. There's so many different things. But I think like ultimately before, like I always recommend to people, before you start like imparting frequencies into the water or putting it on some coaster that has crystals in it, before you start doing all that, like let's just filter first. Like let's get the water clean first, and then do that kind of stuff. But it's funny because I'll go like every night before bed, I take a shower and I'll be showering and I'm thinking like, okay, if if money were no issue, like what kind of water system would I set up? I'm thinking, okay, I do this, and then I get it and I put it in a clay jug that was like shaped like an egg, and then I put it in copper and all this stuff. It's so funny because like the things you think about, when you're like just doing your daily stuff at night.
Well, that shows
crazy
where you're at. I think that's a high level of consciousness to be like to be thinking about that, maybe not like obsessively nonstop, but I think it's to me, it's way more interesting than food, like, because I think it matters more. Because we can't last as long, without water. We can last quite a long time without food. And yeah, you make a good point with like focusing on the basics first, but once you have those down, it's so fun. I mean, one that I rarely hear people talk about is just Myron glass, that 1 liter bottle, and put my water in it and then put that out in the sun. And that blocks all frequencies of light except for UV and infrared. That's my favorite, actually, summer water vessel, because it's, it's cobalt. So, if you're worried about cobalt toxicity, another fear. If there's no acids in it, I would not worry about it personally. It's not going to leach.
So what would be your setup, the ultimate setup? We have like a bunch of questions, but I don't think we're going to take them just because I don't want to be here all day and I don't want you to take your time. But one of the questions from Latosha was, what would be the ultimate water setup, and what would be a good beginner setup? So let's start with the ultimate. Like, what would you do if you, I guess you can, but what do you think is the best?
And I guess, are we assuming this is municipal source or?
Well, no, let's just say like this is the system that you could just snap your fingers. So I would assume it would be like the source would be spring fed.
Okay.
And maybe come in initial with like a whole house RO and then something else. Like, what do you think would be the best, all the way from getting the water out of the tap to like putting frequencies and stuff into it?
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. So it would be spring fed for sure. Cause that's the ultimate. That is, I mean, of course there's primary water above that, but I don't know if there's any houses in the world that have that running into their faucet. So below primary water, which is basically new water that the earth is creating. That's the fascinating documentaries on primary water. So second to primary water is spring water.
Okay.
Probably the hardest house to nail down. That would be the source. It would run through, I think, my setup. So I don't think you have to go crazy with it. Basically the Viqua that I mentioned, a system like that, where it's basically sediment, carbon, ultraviolet sterilization.
Okay.
And then from that, and I'm just describing my system, into the fractal water imploder by Dan Winter. So it's basically a big, giant vortexer. It's like the size of my head.
Okay.
So it vortexes through this thing. And then from there into the whole house analemma, which basically is the mother water that took them years to create, from like lightning strikes and moon cycles and geometric shapes. And it's basically water in this quartz tube in there, as water is vortexing over it again. So it vortexes twice after the big vortexer, and it's becoming coherent. And maybe that's overkill. Probably is. Probably only need the analemma. And then from there,
why not do both?
Right. Right. And then from there, we're talking about drinking water. It's going into my kitchen, into the Mitolife filter, going through that 7th stage, coming out the faucet. Generally what I'm doing is filling up that MRET pitcher, which I think is about 1.5 liters of water. I press the button, it goes for about 30 minutes, and it's this blinking infrared light, and it's only about like 1 millimeter from the top of the water. So you actually need a marker. It has to be very precise. The water line.
Now, do you use that in placement of the vitalizer?
I do. Yeah, I don't like how loud the vitalizer is. The Duet water vitalizer. I think it's great. I used it for years. That mineral cube gets really grimy over time. And you could clean it.
This one's better. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't. So I'm only using the whole house vortexing. You can get a magnetic stir, like on eBay, which is basically this little magnetic bead or bean, it looks like. But you can only vortex like about this much at a time, so not much. Okay. But basically, I'm focusing on, the whole house vortexing, the analemma, then the MRET, and then I, pour it into into this bottle, which I like has a UV sterilizer built in.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it's the LARQ, LARQ, and I've had so many bottles. I think cleanliness with water is so important, and just refilling your own bottle over and over every day, it gets really gross. And so unless you're really on your game with keeping it clean and running it through the dishwasher, this one or the Myron glass in the sun. So, when you're outside, just let it sunbathe with you. And the ultraviolet will sterilize the water from the sun, especially on a hot, full summer day. The only downside is it'll heat up the water. So, there's that balance of, you don't want to leave it out there all day. And that's pretty much it. I'm not playing with frequencies right now with the infopathy or anything else. The Analemma people made a good point that it's basically you're letting the mother water imprint the making the water coherent. You're not using it electronically or different methods, but I think the MRET is somewhere in between that pitcher, because it's basically this light embedded in the lid. And it's about $500, give or take.
Okay.
But I really feel the difference with that. And I think it's complementary to vortexing and Analemma. So that's basically my system. And then with the showering, which is a whole different ball game. I created the ultimate setup here because I'm really into bathing and water therapy, internal and topical. And there's a company that makes called Aquadia. They're out of Europe, and they make vortexing shower heads, and they range anywhere from, I think, $300-$400 up to $5,000 US. And their big one, which I, again, talking about the ultimate system, I decided to get was 27 holes in this shower head. And I think it's 6 or 8 inches diameter across.
Interesting. Yeah.
And it's a rain shower. So it's right above your head. And it's a mist. So water's vortex. So my water vortexes 3 times technically when I'm showering. So at the end,
that's awesome.
It vortexes out of 27 vortexes. And actually you could see it spiral out of each vortex. And when it spirals out, it creates this mist. So that's kind of nice. And then I'm grounded on the lodestones. So I created a lodestone tub. And I will say, I'm giving all this up to be by my family, because I realize all that stuff is less important than spending quality time with my mom, dad, and brother.
For sure. Right.
But it's good. I mean, ideally you bring your whole family into that kind of thing, but
right.
But
no, it's so cool. It's so cool just being like, geeking out on water and trying to figure out what's the best, and, drinking water. As a final question, in terms of like liquids that you take, because I assume you're drinking maybe coffee or something right now. What do you drink? Like, how much water do you drink? Do you drink a lot or little? Do you make it like a thing you do every day, or do you just go by how you feel? What are you doing?
Generally just by how I feel. A lot of my fluid intake is split between 3 things lately. An essential amino acid blend, an electrolyte blend with like creatine, potassium, sodium, magnesium, and fiber, which I like to consume insoluble and soluble fiber. And usually these are all 3 of these are in the 12 ounce, small size mason jar.
Okay.
And I'll just intuitively drink those throughout the day, generally 2 to 3 of those each throughout the day.
Okay.
Basically in between meals. And I find, especially after a long podcast, my Adam Bergstrom, 4-hour shows, it's like, I need a steak, but I also need something like yesterday in my system because I'm depleted. I just went 4 hours nonstop. And so I usually I reach for the protein and the essential amino acids, which, I like the company Fortigen from John Jaquish I had on my show, because it's twice the price of Perfect Amino XP from Body Health, but it's twice the serving. So a lot of people don't realize that. So the Body Health that I took for years doesn't taste as good to me, and their electrolytes are better than their protein, in my opinion. Really like their electrolyte blend, but their protein's like 5 grams per scoop, and his is 10 grams per scoop. And that's a really good way, because that's equivalent to 30 grams of protein. And so that makes it real easy for me to hit my goal for the day. Especially playing around with intermittent fasting and stuff. I think it's really dangerous when you start lowering your protein intake. And that's one thing I've been consistent with over the last 3 years, even with increasing carb intake and all the experimentation. I always made sure to get enough amino acids in every single day,
Nice.
whether in gelatin or red meat or, steak, ground beef, stuff like that. But yeah, those three liquids are the main, and then coffee generally I'll have after breakfast. So lately and this might not be forever, but lately my breakfast has been the Magic Spoon cereal, which is,
Oh yeah, I know.
it's
That's
so
stuff.
good. I mean, I was raised on Fruit Loops, and Lucky Charms and Cheerios. So even just the emotional comfort,
It takes you back.
yeah. Knowing that it's actually clean. I mean, cause I was doing Catalina Crunch for a while, and Costco sells that. And I think even grocery outlets, and you could find that. I think, Walmart sells it. Yeah. Walmart, I bought it there before. And I think they have a chocolate one, which had a heavy metal scare and stuff, but they have the cinnamon one, which I never saw any recalls for. And it was okay, but there were some sketchy ingredients in there, but I'm like, whatever, I can take it. I'm strong. But then I discovered Magic Spoon, and it was like twice the quality.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, I'm not even an affiliate. I just love the stuff, and I just do like that with almond milk. Just because the only thing I do, dry farm regenerative almond milk, not against dairy. I'm just doing it because it's essentially low carb, versus milk is very high carb. If you're okay with carbs, I'm fine. Do milk. I just would rather keep it low in the morning, close to zero, essentially in the morning. So usually I'll do that and some eggs and some cottage cheese.
That's cool.
And then I have my coffee. So.
Yeah, we do the raw milk for the kids and the Magic Spoon. They love that. It's so good.
Yeah, it tastes. It's crazy the fruit one. How much they nailed that. Like it tastes exactly like Fruit Loops.
So good. Yeah. I know, it's so good. So what is your what is your motivation for like going for optimal health? Because you look at people that are our generation. You're a little younger than me, but I mean, it's like our generation in a sense. Most people are either focused on their career or they're focused on whatever, and they're just eating just the fast food and stuff. Like, what's your motivation? Like, why do you like? There must be an overall goal, right? And effect you want to have on the world.
Yeah, I've been contemplating this a lot lately, especially the last couple years, because I think people in our position, like with what you're doing, you just get caught up in all of this chaos and tornado of emotions and this craziness that is the social media world. And it makes you want to just tap your 401k, just retire and just say, I'm just going to play golf and drink martinis or red wine or whatever, and just have, the lowest stress possible. But I think the fun thing for me is kind of the game of the challenge of seeing how resilient I can get to stressors and how much cellular energy I can make, which go hand in hand. And it's been quite the process with a lot of different experimentations. And some people call me or paint me extreme, but I think I would rather find out the truth for me quickly instead of staying with some lifestyle for 5 years, 10 years. I mean, I have vegan friends, raw vegan, used to be raw vegan, and they lost their teeth, like kind of their front teeth, and now they have essentially dentures. So they did that experiment too long. And I think you could say the same thing for high carb and diabetes. I mean, 80% of people are undiagnosed with type 2, and they just don't know the symptoms, and they've never had a CGM or pricked their finger, which I think is one of the best metrics along with checking your ferritin. Those two things can absolutely kickstart, someone on their journey to recovery. So what keeps me going with all of the drama and chaos and saying, is it worth it, is having people reach out and say, if you didn't change your mind on this, if you didn't share this little piece of info, if you didn't introduce me to this person or this book or this podcast or whatever it is, I would have probably died. And that I've heard that multiple times. And it's like, whoa, even just
Crazy.
one person saying that to you has quite an impact. And it does make it all worth it. I'm not trying to be a superhero and save everyone's life, because everyone's responsible for their own health. But just to have that kind of an impact on someone and give them more time with their family, give them more time on this earth to share their gifts with the world, it's really cool. So.
Yeah, I know. It's I mean, we all have our motivations. Sometimes people are trying to come out of like a catastrophic injury, or maybe they got like a chronic disease they're dealing with, or, for me, I was watching my mom go through cancer and realizing for me, I hate to be told what to do. And I hate also that there's only one way to heal, or there's only one option for something. So when I saw her go through chemo, I was like, oh my goodness. And so, that's when I got into raw veganism and realizing there's this whole world out there that people don't know about. And so, but yeah, I think ultimately, if we want to create a better world, we have to be able to generate energy at the deepest level in our mitochondria and have the energy so that we're not just like rolling over and tired and can't do our dream or whatever the case may be, because all of us have to, impact the world in some way. And so, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just copper and retinol, right? It's not it's not just getting rid of iron, and not just to bash that, but I'm just saying there's more to it. It's not just one thing. It's not just 3 things. It's not just 10 things. It's a million things. And not to say you have to know in detail what those million things are, but starting somewhere. Maybe you are copper deficient. Maybe you're zinc deficient. Maybe you're retinol deficient. Maybe you're magnesium deficient. Maybe you're K2 deficient, which is often not talked about, which is an electron carrier like retinol. Vitamin K2 will carry electrons across the electron transport chain in your mitochondria. So if you're deficient in energy, supplementing K2 could help. So it's just finding your like weak links and plugging those in. And I think for me and for you as well, I believe it's just fun to continually add things in, where it's not overwhelming, but just slowly adding things in and seeing how it affects us. I think you've been loving ozone lately, and that was a total game changer for me to get into like rectal insufflations. I think it was like early last year, about a year ago.
Yeah, I know. It's, you start learning about these modalities and it's like, oh my goodness, like doctors don't know about this and most people have no idea. And to be able to have these tools, like I know you have your tools behind you, and I love having tools at home too, because ultimately, especially with a family, like you want to be able to have some silver or some ozonated water or something in case, one of the kids scratches their arm and they're bleeding out, you want to be able to have something for them. And so, go ahead. Yeah.
The corneal abrasion, I forgot to mention, my neighbor gave me Sovereign Silver, and that helped more than the steroid.
So methylene blue is quickly becoming one of my favorite tools to use my overall health strategy and immune system strengthening. It's an amazing substance. It was first put together in 1876 by German scientist and chemist named Hendrik Caro. Later, it was used in the treatment of malaria by Paul Gutman and Paul Ehrlich in 1891. But then later it was synthesized into a popular drug that we can't talk about today, starting an I and ending in N. So what I love about it, though, is that it is an electron donor, electron acceptor, and an electron recycler. It helps to change the conformation of hemoglobin in the red blood cells so the hemoglobin can carry more oxygen to every single tissue in your body. And it also helps to clean up senescent cells. It increases mitochondrial biogenesis, increasing ATP production. It works as a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, increasing dopamine and serotonin. It's a nootropic. It's antimicrobial. It's an antidepressant. It's antioxidant, and therefore it's neuroprotective. And I like the company Lifeblood because it is a liquid tincture. And I usually use a small amount, like 1 or 2 drops per day. But then if I have some health challenge going on, like a cold or flu, I might do 20 to 30 drops in 1 ounce water 3 times a day. So I'll go heavy on the methylene blue. But what I also like is you can nebulize it too and get it into your lung tissue, or you could use it topically on your skin, although it will stain your skin. If this is interesting to you, check out the book called The Ultimate Guide to Methylene Blue by Mark Sloan. It'll blow your mind. Or you can listen to episode 731 by Adam Marifiotti from Lifeblood. So check out Methylene Blue, add it to your stack on today's show page or in our store, biochargeme.com, and the code EHR10 will get you a 10% discount.
That I was prescribed from the eye doctor.
No way. Did you just, was it the liquid?
Yeah, it was just the dropper and just immediate relief from the Sovereign Silver. It was crazy.
Yeah. It's so cool that all this stuff is out there, you know? It's so fun. I love it. Dude, all right. So if people want to look into this water filter, we're affiliates of yours, and we have a coupon code. Does that code work for the water filter as well?
It does. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And that makes it, I think, it already is the most effective and affordable water filter in the world. Of course, I'm biased, but I've been in it for a while. I mean, I've studied water more than food, and, I'm not claiming to know everything about water. I'm always a student, as with every subject, but I think a lot of people hyper-focus on nutrition. I've hyper-focused on water. So I have more of an understanding, especially experiential understanding of water quality. And that led me to create the system, which is really unique, really affordable, and it really works. So yeah, your discount works. And if someone already has an RO system installed, they could keep their storage tank, they can keep their faucet. All they have to do basically is just get our assembly only, and then just connect the lines, and they're rocking and rolling. It'd be a 2-minute setup.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So those products that you mentioned before, like the MRET and I think the Amalena or whatever, and the other water, what was that? There was a guy's name you mentioned for the whole house structuring. What was that? Do you carry that on your store, Matt Blackburn?
Oh, are you talking about the Vortex, the Dan Winter? Yeah.
Dan Winter. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not affiliated. I don't have an affiliate thing for that, but yeah, matt-blackburn.com. You could see all of my recommended products, and I'm always switching it up and adding products. And on the front page, actually, I just added, I think, our mutual friend, Andy Mant, the light bulb. Because I got sick. I did a Philips Hue experiment. Talk about experiments gone wrong. And what a frustrating thing. I mean, it was like $60, $70 a bulb. And these are like Wi-Fi. So basically it's a hub that connects to your Wi-Fi. And when you're not home, you could change the color of the lights, turn them on, turn them off, which is nice for home defense. It's like burglars it's going to look like someone's home, and you turn it on for your pets. But it was just a headache. I mean, the more technology, as we know, the more can go wrong and the more stuff can break. And so I was just like, screw it, I'm done with it. 50% of the time it wouldn't connect to my phone. So I'm standing there trying to turn them off to go to bed. And I'm like, I got to wait for it to connect for 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I switched to Andy's, and it was so cool. You flick it like 3 times and there's 3 different settings.
It's awesome, huh? I love his bulbs. Yeah. That's cool. That's rad.
So I love finding stuff like that, where just these little upgrades. I mean, you could really make your home a sanctuary, even inside of a city. I used to be like anti-city, here, my off-grid high horse. And I do think off-grid is good long-term if you can do it, especially raising a family. But you can absolutely thrive in a city with some things. I actually use my salt inhaler, my salt booth every day. And I'm sure I'm going to be using that more in the city, because car exhaust, I mean, the air quality in cities is just horrendous. And so just 5 minutes a day of breathing this aerosol of salt in a little pop-up tent, I think it's incredibly helpful. I mean, it instant clears my sinuses.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was listening to that podcast you did with the owner of that company on the flight back we went to visit our biological dentist, Dr. Nunley, in Texas. And I was listening to that and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get one of these tents.
Leo Tonkin. Yeah, he's a cool. Yeah, it's a great company. And I think it's like $2,000 for their smallest unit with a little, almost like a sauna tent. It's like a little pop-up clear tent. I would say just put that in an air conditioned room, because when I use that in the summer, I don't have AC at this house, and I cooked. It was like a dual sauna and salt therapy
Oh, no
session.
way. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So for those that are listening on podcasts or iTunes, if you like Extreme Health Radio, you're going to love Matt's show. Look him up, Mitolife Radio. And you do a show that comes out every Friday, right?
Yep, every Friday, usually by noon to 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. They could look for it. And yeah, I think we just hit around 216 shows, somewhere around there. I'm already losing track. Hey, I can't imagine your show are way above 1,000. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I used to do like 4 a week, but I don't think you can get anything else done if you do that, so.
Yeah. And it's funny too, to listen to ourselves and our first shows, right? I always still go back and listen to like my first 10 shows, and not much has changed. My shows with like the late Dr. Cass Ingram are some of my favorites. And the
awesome.
Magnetico guy. It's sad when some of the guests that you've had on passed away. It kind of changes my perspective on life, because you had this deep conversation with someone and then they're no longer here. It's like,
it's wild, right? Yeah, I know a lot of people. For me, I've been doing since 2012, and gosh, a lot of people are gone that I've interviewed. But yeah, so I'm glad. Like, I feel grateful that I've had some of the people on for that reason, But yeah, I mean, that's why we're doing what we're doing, is because I like it, because even like we replay our shows the other 6 days of the week. Our shows come out Sunday night. And so the other 6 days we replay the old shows. And what I think is so cool about what you and I are doing is that even though we learn, and I cringe at my old episodes and how little I knew, but even though all that's true, like the information is still really good. And it's not like these, because I listen to a lot of other shows that are based on like current events, and you can't rerun current event shows. So it's cool to do that,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. Like the criticism sometimes of like me changing my mind and, you've been talking about this for years. And I try to explain to people that if you have hereditary hemochromatosis, which Robert Crichton says is the reason why people have iron overload, then my episodes on that and your episodes on that can literally save their life. But for other people, it's not useful. And in fact, it could be harmful advice if they use it incorrectly, which is up to the person, right? Because we don't give medical advice. We're just sharing what our guests are saying and sharing a perspective and an option. So that's what's really interesting to me, is like people don't get that aspect that, everything that I've said could be right or wrong depending on the circumstance and the person, right? And the situation. Yeah,
I know. And there's so much nuance to it all. So what are you going to do rest of today?
Well, the sun's finally been out. And so I've been getting back into the sun throughout the day and getting outside, and actually just fired up the wood burning hot tub. So it's a off-grid hot tub. And yesterday it was filled with ice, about 3/4. And so it was a giant ice block in there. And so I had to start a fire and had the fire going for about 6 hours. And I haven't checked how much melted, overnight, but we're coming out of winter here, and that's all cool. The snow's been quickly melting over the last couple of years. But yeah, I'm excited to move back down to California here soon, because it's going to be a really interesting shift, like not having to drive, 3 hours round trip to go out to eat at a restaurant, which is what I've been doing here for the last 2 years.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's going to be awesome. But one thing I was wondering about, it just occurred to me, you were going to get these like geodomes that were like 30 feet high and start growing some fruit trees. I guess you're going to put that on the back burner?
For now, yeah, I think I'm gonna definitely put it up at some point. I'm definitely going to hang on to it and do that up here. My plan is to make this my long-term zone. So ideally in 2-3 years, I'll be back up here. A big thing is just flying down, because I don't like missing any birthday of my family members. I know some people just fly to see their family once a year or twice a year. Yeah, I can't do that. We just have a different relationship where, it was like trains, planes, and automobiles last Christmas, where I could not miss, my brother would have been devastated if I missed our first Christmas together. So
Oh man.
I would have essentially probably walked or took a taxi, if our flights kept getting canceled, but, made it to Sacramento and then had to rent a car after searching for 12 hours and then driving down the coast. So yeah, it's just, I will put up like a raised bed there and use an inspiration and get into electroculture. And I think the geodome's out of most people's price range, and it's cool. That's like going back to the advanced water setup thing, like all that's awesome, and the lodestone tub and stuff. But for most people, it's not practical. And so I'm really excited to share really practical solutions for people. Because most people are not going to have a greenhouse or an indoor garden. It's going to be an outdoor, exposed to geoengineering spraying,
right?
Probably on tap water, So it's like, let's find solutions to all that stuff. And so I'm looking forward to doing that, and definitely going to put up some fruit trees down there. Although cool. I'm mostly doing lemons and limes right now for my fruit. So
yeah, that's cool though. Yeah, we have a little place, but we have 2 backyards, and so we have, on the side of our house, we have 5. We got 6 fruit trees on the side, and we have like 4 others. I think we have like 11 fruit trees total, and I think we need to put 3 or 4 of them in the ground. But we have this clay soil, but it's really cool, like just getting into all of this. And like, we've got this rabbit, so we feed him the scraps, and we take his poop and put it in the compost, and take that compost and put it on the fruit trees. It's just like this cycle, and it's just so cool. And I don't know, it's something I've been wanting to do forever, but we never were able to. And as soon as this COVID thing happened, we're like, okay, let's start doing this, and it's been a lot of fun.
It's really impressive what you've been doing. And yeah, I love the recycling aspect. Like, now that I've had chickens, and I know at rentals, like my first rental where I had chickens and a beehive, it's so much harder. I really feel for people that are renting their property, because you have to get permission, and you have to get permission or hide it and then get yelled at, which has happened to me.
That's what's going on with us.
And right now I have a rooster and 11 hens. And so down there, I'm going to have to do, there's all these laws in the city. So like you can't have them free ranging. They have to be in a run, they have to go in at night, and there's all these, you have to play by so many rules, and it's whatever. I mean, we work around it, right, and figure it out. But yeah. I'll probably focus quite a bit on avocado trees, because I didn't know there was such a rich potassium source. It's
insane, right?
I think it's between like 500 milligrams an avocado and like 1,100 per avocado, depending on various factors. So I could eat those all day.
I know. And they're so great too. Like people normally go for like, bananas, but kiwi fruit and avocado are way higher in potassium. Well, I think we have like 2 or 3 trees, but I'm getting a little down. So I'm going to start doing the electroculture stuff. Our clay soils are just like so gnarly. And so we put a fruit tree in the ground and it just dies, So like we're trying to amend the soils, and I'm learning, but it's fun,
Have you sent in your soil? Like, I know our buddy Charles talked about like the Albrecht method, I think it is, where you can test your soil. Because there's some philosophy, and it kind of makes sense. Like, it's kind of like with our body, like test, don't guess. It's like you have to send your soil in and see where the calcium's at and all the different,
Yeah, I should do that. I really should do that. I've been doing some different amendments to it, and we're going to be adding some more nitrogen here because it's going to be blooming season. So, but yeah, I need to do that. It's probably, much like you have like 75, you have like 5 different things you have to kind of manage. And each one of those 5 things, you have 50 things in those 5 things every day. And so
right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think I have like, no exaggeration, like 20 blood tests, at home tests downstairs that I have to do. Like hemoglobin A1C, which was supposedly the last 3 years of my blood sugar. Because people got on me about the pre-diabetes thing and saying, the blood glucose is not a standalone accurate measure of, diagnosing diabetes. But to me, it is. The American Diabetes Association is very clear. I mean, it's the same thing with ferritin and iron. That is an accurate marker. Of course, you could look at other ones and get a bigger picture, but you don't need the bigger picture to get started and to make changes in your life. So I've been loving the whole glucose journey, and basically just, I mean, my takeaway has been eating fiber first during the meal, just having a salad first.
Interesting.
At dinner, especially when I'm eating out, way different. And then if I combine that with like a walk after dinner, way better. No matter what, even if I, have red wine or have pasta or pizza or whatever I'm eating. I haven't had pizza in a long time, but the blood sugar spike, if it's like 30 milligrams per deciliter, that's fine. But if it's like above that, like 50, 60, 70, I was getting like 80 spikes increase. Yeah. That causes blood vessel damage, cardiovascular disease, brain inflammation, all sorts of problems. So it's been kind of fun to go like basically zero carb for breakfast, not all the time, and then have generally carbs at dinner a couple times a week, but most days keeping it like under 30. So that's been a fun journey. I mean, it's kind of such an old thing because people have been talking about this stuff for, a long time. And of course, there's the diet wars. But for me, just combining it with the supplements is really fun because it's been fun playing with berberine and then dihydroberberine, which is better. Yeah. And then citrus extracts and then bitters and then all these digestive enzymes. And like I've been doing a million different stacks before eating out. So it's kind of like R&D. It's kind of fun to see. Might be a Mitolife supplement at some point, like a blood glucose control thing. Because I'm trying every formula out there right now, basically. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. All right, so I think we'll just wrap it up here. But for those that don't know, go on to iTunes, check out Mitolife Radio. And then a lot of the stuff that we talked about today can be found on his personal website, which is matt-blackburn.com. And then if you're interested in his supplement line or the water filter, you can use our code EHR15 for a 15% discount. And one thing I really want to say too, that I think is really cool that what you're doing with Mitolife is a donation of the child trafficking, thing. And I think it's really cool because whenever I shop online, I always like, if we buy Amazon, I always go to your website and go through your Amazon link, because anytime I'm buying online, I want to support, like with one purchase, you could support like 4 different people or 4 different things. So if someone goes through our link and uses our discount code, they get a discount. They get a killer product from you. They support your work. They support my work. They support the trafficking. And it's just awesome with one purchase, So I encourage everyone, whether you buy through our link or anybody else's link, whenever you're buying something online, try to like see if there's an affiliate for that, so that you can support people doing the work that they do, So
I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah, the Deliver Fund. That was actually referred to me too. I just didn't randomly close my eyes and put my finger on that on the internet. A friend of mine, Jamie, actually referred me to them because she personally knows the founders. So that made me feel really good because I've heard a lot of these types of organizations, or could be shady. And I don't know if it's just rumors, but it makes me feel really good that a friend of mine knows who actually organizes it and runs it. And yeah, I think you and I have been kind of researching, what you would call conspiracy stuff, as long as we have health stuff for longer. And when you really get into it, obviously the Jeffrey Epstein stuff was like, the last big blow up, and then now it's become a meme, and then, Hillary Clinton's involvement. And when you finally delve in, you find that is like the root of all the evil that's going on the planet right now. And so, if I could change anything on the planet, it would be to stop that. If I had to just pick one thing. And so just this little thing I could do through Mitolife, I think is making a huge difference.
That's cool. And so what do you do? Like, do you save all the funds up and give it every month or every year, or how do you do it for them?
It's actually really cool. It's every day. It's just integrated into the site. So it just sends them basically direct deposit of every sale.
Wow.
Every
that's
day.
Cool.
So yeah, like when you buy the water filter, it's $15 that goes to them immediately. So
That's rad, dude. So yeah, that's what I think is so cool. And I think that ultimately, if people, this will be my last little rant before we leave, but ultimately, if people could like switch from companies that are supporting all of this stuff, I won't name any companies' names, but the big famous companies, if you can find other sources for those same products, that's a step in the right direction. A lot of people are moving away from Amazon for that reason.
Right.
But, and then supporting multiple people with one purchase by going through affiliate links or using codes or stuff like that, because as an affiliate, it's great to be friends with the owner of a company like Mitolife, like Matt, but it's also like, when you do that, you support the work we do. And I spend my days researching and putting together protocols for, other stuff. And so it's just, I don't know, for me, it's great. I always go through an affiliate whenever I buy, anywhere. I like to support people.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, that's actually how I quit my day job, was through affiliate commissions years ago when I was living with my parents. And I think it was like Omica Organics, and then it was like Magnetico, and then Pristine, and just these companies that I believed in, and I was using their products daily. And it's just so cool to share with people how to use them, why to use them, and then make a living literally off of it. And I mean, it's astounding. You would not imagine what, how many hundreds of thousands we paid out to affiliates for Mitolife, and paid their mortgages and their cars or whatever. And it's all really cool. And I just want to say too, I'm really thankful for the Mitolife team, because it's really small. We don't have an HQ or an office or board meetings or shareholders or investors. I don't want any of that ever. We just have a team of like 6 people, and we all laugh with each other, and our basically our hearts are in it, and they all understand what we're trying to do and the message, and they care. So it's really cool. And yeah, I hope to share more. I mean, we just started pumping out more informative articles on our social media and email list. So make sure you're subscribed to the email list, because we'll be, keeping it informative, not just marketing stuff, but like interesting studies about niacinamide and vitamin E and K2 and systemic enzymes. So there's some interesting stuff on nattokinase and the spike protein. Just look into that one.
Yeah, I know. I have some of those studies up, and I'm like trying to figure out how to share them, if I want to share them,
I'm already shadow banned to oblivion, and it's affected my reach quite a bit. But I'm just kind of counting on word of mouth, and you can't even search my name from my understanding. Like, you have to type in every letter for me to come up.
Yeah, I know that happened with us, and we just got another strike on YouTube. They went off. There was like some 3-year-old video that I did that just got a strike, and so we've got like almost 80,000 subscribers there, but we're probably be kicked off soon. But I don't care. Like, kick us off. I'll start another one. I'll go to some other platform. I don't care.
Well, it's funny because social media is like feeding this like overly sensitive kind of mindset in people. Like, my latest post, I like quoted Goebbels, because he was talking about like the big lie, like keep repeating a lie and everyone will believe it. And it got flagged for hate speech. It's like, I'm not like saying Goebbels the hero. I just quoted him. Like,
wow, that's crazy.
Right. I don't know. I mean, people probably reported it. I'm guessing that's how it happened, or maybe the AI found it, but it's just, it's getting to the point where we almost have to move to these alternative platforms that you're on. I mean, I'm still on YouTube and I haven't gotten flagged yet, but I'm sure it will happen.
Yeah, I know. Well, cool. All right. So check out mitolife.co and use the code EHR15 if you guys are interested in any of the products. I appreciate that. And also look up Mitolife Radio on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever else. And let's see, what date is today? Wednesday? What's the next podcast coming out Friday for you?
Actually, I have to,
is it a solo show?
No, I've actually been recording ahead since I'm moving soon. So
oh yeah,
you might know how that goes. You have to like work way ahead. But I had the Analemma people. I had my friend Amanda on to talk about healthy metabolism. And, there's no such thing as healthy weight gain, essentially.
Yeah.
I interviewed Bob Troya. He's a biohacker. I think he created a peptide app. So those are the three that are upcoming. So I'm ahead. Usually I'm last minute. I'm recording like the Thursday and then posting it Friday. And so
I know I've done that too.
It's pretty nerve wracking, especially when the guest cancels. So that's happened to me a few times, but yeah, exciting shows coming up. I'm working on getting a biogeometry woman on. That's going to be like, because I like having esoteric shows. I'm going to have Adam on again soon.
Nice.
It's been too long. Our sugar friend.
Yeah, totally. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So yeah, thanks for everything you're doing, Justin. And I want to tell people, check out our show, because a lot of people really loved that when I interviewed you on Mitolife Radio. So
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll put a link to that in the description of this one too. Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome. Well, yeah, appreciate everything you're doing, and you're one of my favorite shows to listen to. Well, yeah, number one favorite for sure. Definitely.
Thanks, man.
The most interesting. I mean, it all just sounds like monotonous, just the same noise, when you listen to all these shows where it's like all keto or all this or that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for being on today.
Yeah. Thanks so much. This was great. Talk soon.
Episode 765 with Mr. Matt Blackburn. I hope you guys enjoyed that show. I just got off probably, an hour post interview conversation with him off the air. Matt's a good friend of mine. I love Matt, and he's doing really cool stuff over at Mitolife. And I hope you guys, if you haven't tried any of his supplements yet or his water filter, I would really recommend trying them out. And, as always, if you want to support our work, you can use our code EHR15. But the way you can also do that is through our store, biochargeme.com. But I hope you guys enjoyed that show. That was really fun. I love learning about water. And as I mentioned during the show, there's levels to water, and I just really recommend just trying something. If you're kind of new to all this and you're not really sure, just get like a Berkey system and use that for a while and get used to that, and then upgrade from there. Or if you want to just dive right into a higher level filtration, I would get the Mitolife filter. And so that's what we'll be doing, is upgrading to that underneath the counter. And since we know that water becomes blood in 30 minutes, it's really, really key to make sure that you're drinking enough water. I like to drink 3 mason jars full of water per day. So that's about 96 ounces. So typically the way, like what I do, and don't follow what I do, but this is just what I do. First thing upon waking, I'll usually drink a full mason jar full of water. And I won't drink it, like chug it. I'll kind of sip on it for maybe 10 minutes. And typically what I'll do is, like 4 days a week, I'll put ozone into that water on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And whenever you take ozone in your water, you don't want to take any food or supplements. You want to make sure it's on an empty stomach and cold as possible. And so what I've been doing, and I really like it, is doing ozonated water first thing in the morning, because ozonated water is just really incredible for energy production, killing bacteria, viruses, parasites, things like that are living in our digestive tract. And so I like to do that, as well as for immunity and energy enhancement as well. It's a great way, pick me up. So I'll do that 4 days a week. And then the other days of the week, I'll usually add some salt, lots of salt to the water, or some minerals from like Vital Earth. And I'll take about 4 or 5 of the Mitolife brand Dissolvedol supplements. And those are systemic enzymes, serrapeptase and nattokinase. And what that does, that helps to break up necrotic tissue. It helps to sort of go throughout your blood like Pac-Man and eat up scar tissue, fibrosis, fibrin, fibrinogen, necrotic tissue, things that shouldn't be there. And it just sort of eats that up and really relieves a lot of stress to your system. And so I like to do that on the days that I don't drink the ozonated water. And then for the rest of the day, I drink 2 more mason jars full. And I typically have those completed around dinner time, roughly around dinner time. And on those ones, I'll do molecular hydrogen infused into the water with a red light therapy device. And then what I'll do after that is add some minerals back in. So that's my current water routine. And if I'm going to go somewhere, maybe I'll put it in a different device where it stays cold, different container. But there's all kinds of other things that you could do, adding water, minerals to your water, frequencies, vortexing it, all that kind of stuff. And so what's really cool is that you can take it to whatever level you want to take it to. And some people may not have a lot of time, so they can't, do that. If you have the time and the energy, you can put it in like a clay pot. You can, write messages on the side of your water bottle, like the Dr. Marciro Emoto, I think his work is. Eventually, the AquaCure, the molecular hydrogen that I add to the water. If you want, I'll put links to the hydrogen and the water ozone machine that I use. But the AquaCure apparently will be able to make deuterium depleted water here. So apparently that's an attachment. I've been in talks with George about the release of that, and he said it's soon. But apparently he's got it all done. He just needs to, I guess, put it into manufacturing and production. So that would be really cool to be able to do deuterium depleted water in the same water that you do molecular hydrogen. So, it's really like water. There's multiple levels of water. And I think that it's really important to make sure that you're not just drinking tap water. You don't want to do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. It was a long one. I wasn't prepared to do a show that long, but I didn't want to cut it short because Matt's really a great guy and I love supporting him and his work. Make sure to check out mitolife.co, matt-blackburn.com, and check out his podcast, Mitolife Radio. And and so I hope you guys enjoyed that show. If you would like to learn more about what I'm doing, you can check out Patreon. There's a link down below. And what I'm doing there is I'm putting together my protocols that I'm making available to patron members. And that is basically everything that I would do if I were diagnosed with a certain condition, extra cells on the skin. So I'm constantly doing research. The one I'm doing right now is on sleep. And so I'm going to be putting together a protocol right now on sleep. I release them every single month. And so the basic tier, you get 1 protocol per month. The premium tier, you get 2. And the VIP tier, you get 3. And those protocols typically have like at least 100 links to them of studies and articles and books and stuff like that, along with products and the amount I would take and where I would start with all of that stuff if I were diagnosed with that condition. And they also contain stuff that you wouldn't think about, like therapies and detox and cleanses and, biohacking devices and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of information in these protocols. Typically they take at least 40 to 50 hours of work for one protocol to research it. And from every different angle I can come across. So I like doing it and it's fun. And so I make those available on the last day of every month on Patreon, and you can join that up. There's 3 different tiers to choose from. You can check that out. If you want to just leave us a review, I would really appreciate that. That would be awesome. Leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you listen. iHeart Radio, we're kind of, everywhere. So make sure to leave us a review there. And so I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching and listening. This will be available at extremehealthradio.com/765. And I'll catch you guys on the next episode.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse of this information.